Chapter 121. In the Uchiha family's territory, Itachi was strolling alone. Although he was strolling, once one studied Itachi's route, it was not difficult to find that Itachi was slowly walking towards a warehouse where the Uchiha clan usually stored vegetables and food. Looking at this place that was usually used to store ordinary food for the clan, Itachi's brows slightly wrinkled. The guards here were the same as before. They were selected from the relatively old people of the Uchiha clan who were no longer ninjas. Two old people who seemed to be around 50 years old were sitting at the entrance of the warehouse at this moment. They seemed to be chatting about something. However, with his eyesight, Itachi found some talismans hidden in some secret corners of the walls of the warehouse. Waves of slight chakra waves were released from them from time to time. They resonated with each other and formed a barrier that surrounded the entire warehouse. Sure enough, Father has an ulterior motive. The barrier was actually a very simple sensing barrier. If there was anything different, it was just that the fluctuations of an ordinary sensing barrier were weaker. Looks like I have to give it a try. Itachi thought in his heart, and his feet moved. He strode towards the entrance of the warehouse and the barrier was immediately triggered. Several auras instantly rose from the surrounding courtyards and moved around several times. The person who released the aura had already appeared in front of Itachi. Who dares to trespass into the Uchiha clan's warehouse? Let this uncle teach this Master Itachi a good lesson. The person in charge of guarding the warehouse seemed to have a slightly bad temper. He didn't even see who was standing in front of him and already began to speak ruthlessly. But halfway through his words, he naturally saw that the person in front of him was actually the eldest son of the clan head, Itachi Uchiha. He could only bow to Itachi Uchiha with an embarrassed expression. Some of the clansmen behind the Uchiha who were responsible for guarding the warehouse also followed suit and bowed to Itachi. But then the leader looked at Itachi and asked, "I don't know why Itachi-sama came to such an ordinary warehouse. Is there something you need?" Itachi smiled and said, "It's nothing, I just came to take a look. But with your strength, you actually came to protect such an ordinary warehouse. It seems that our Uchiha family really values these grains?" Although Itachi had a smile on his face, he still emphasized the words, normal storage, when he spoke. "Master Itachi, please don't make things difficult for an errand boy like me. I was only transferred here according to orders. It's my boss's orders. It's not something I can choose. Who else could become the superior of the Uchiha clan? It could only be Uchiha Fugaku, the head of the Uchiha clan, or the elders of the Uchiha clan." The leader said this because he wanted Itachi to know that these things were arranged by people at his father's level. Don't meddle in it casually. Otherwise, those in high positions may not necessarily care about Itachi's identity as the young master of the family. But what if I want to go in and take a look today? Originally, the leader thought that with Itachi's intelligence, he naturally wouldn't do such a thing. But no one expected that Itachi not only didn't retreat at this moment, but also unscrupulously exuded his aura. A surging chakra wave was emitted from Itachi's body from time to time. "Master Itachi, although you have become a special jonin at a young age, your talent is extraordinary. But sometimes talent can't beat time, please retreat as soon as possible." The leader of the guards also took a step forward at this moment. The aura he exuded was the strength of a jonin. Looking at the leader of the guards, Itachi also thought in his heart. Although he is not weaker than an ordinary jonin, most of the jonins of the Uchiha clan have awakened at least 2 Tomo Sharingan. And to be able to be directly commanded by the higher-ups to guard the warehouse, then this jonin will at least have 3 Tomo Sharingan. The only time he defeated a jonin was by relying on his Sharingan and a bit of luck. So Itachi also took a step back and put away his aura. Looking at the leader of the guards, he said, "I'm just curious and I want to take a look. Since you don't want me to go in and take a look, it's okay. Goodbye." After saying that, he didn't pay attention to the expressions of these guards. Itachi walked straight away, but the leader of the guards still stretched out his hand and called one of his men and said to him, "It seems that Master Itachi has noticed something. You go now and inform the patriarch and explain the situation clearly." "Yes." After the subordinate responded, he jumped up from the eaves and rushed to the place where Uchiha Fugaku was handling the internal affairs of the Uchiha clan. Itachi didn't care about the watcher's reactions and just walked straight in one direction. He only hoped to get out of the range of the leader of the guards as soon as possible. But suddenly, in an alley beside him, an arm pulled Itachi into the alley. As a member of the Woodleaf Umbu, Itachi's reaction speed is naturally amazing. In an instant he took out a kunai from the ninja bag behind him and wanted to fight back. Crack. The sound of metal colliding suddenly sounded, and the two kunai collided with each other. "Brother Shursui?" Aren't you? Seeing the face of the person in front of him, Itachi couldn't help but exclaim. The person who came is Uchiha Shisui, known as Body Flicker Shisui. But Shisui's current situation seems to be very wrong. He only opened one of his eyes. So, don't be so excited. Come with me. For some reason, Uchiha Shisui, who is usually very talkative, didn't say anything to Itachi this time. Instead, he took Itachi's hand and walked into the depths of the alley. Uchiha Shisui stretched out a hand and gently knocked one of the bricks on the wall at the end of the alley. A dark hole appeared in the left corner of the road. Come with me, I'll tell you everything you want to know. Shisui looked at the hole and said to Itachi. Itachi also nodded. Shisui is the person who took care of him since he was a child, like his own brother. Not to mention that Itachi really wants to find out what happened to the Uchiha clan. But looking at Shisui's current state, Itachi can't just leave him alone. So Itachi followed Shisui into the hole. Under the hole is a passage leading to a basement. After entering the basement, Shisui didn't greet Itachi Uchiha, who he regarded as a younger brother. Instead, he picked up a flint and lit an oil lamp in the basement. The dim light also brought some light and warmth to the dark and damp basement. Chapter 122. Brother Shisui. Looking at Shisui sitting quietly in front of him, Itachi couldn't help but say, Danzo found you, didn't he? Itachi was surprised. He didn't tell anyone that he met Danzo. And when he returned to the village, he was taken away by Danzo's men after going through the formalities. With the quality of root ninjas, they would never leave any clues for anyone to find them. How did Shisui know? Brother Shisui, don't talk nonsense. I just returned to Woodleaf. How could I? Itachi wanted to say something to cover up the fact that Danzo found him. After all, it involves the Uchiha clan's rebellion. It's not clear whether Uchiha Shisui is on Woodleaf's side or Uchiha's side. It's irrational to say the truth rashly. But halfway through, Itachi's words were abruptly swallowed back by Shisui's gaze. I know, Danzo should have given you a document that suspected the Uchiha clan's rebellion, and then began to instigate you to work for Woodleaf, right? Shisui put away his gaze that was full of coercion and smiled a little self-deprecatingly. Why would you? Itachi couldn't help but ask, but he thought that he should have discovered the source of Danzo's document. This document? Even if you didn't send it to Root, at least you verified the authenticity of the document for Root, right? Hearing Itachi's words, the smile on Shisui's face became wider and more self-deprecating. Yes, this document was given to me by Danzo. He told me a lot, although I didn't waver at that time. But little by little, I couldn't help but investigate. Speaking of this, Shisui took a deep look at Itachi as if he was looking at himself when he was investigating the truth. The warehouse you just went to is actually above this basement. I secretly built this basement with earth release, and then used some talismans to make the guards above unable to perceive the existence of this basement. Do you know what I found when I sneaked in during the investigation? There are tens of thousands of explosive tags in the whole warehouse. If these explosive tags are scattered in important positions, it can directly paralyze the entire operation system of Woodleaf, and the loss is even more serious than when the Nine Tails attacked the village. So I reported my findings to Danzo, hoping that Danzo will pass it to the 3 generations so that they can stop the ambitions of the higher-ups in time. Hearing Shisui's words. Explosive tag is actually equivalent to a high explosive tags. The power of 10,000 explosive tags can't even surpass the power of Spyudama's Bijadamat. Shisui and I-san, you did the right thing. We can't let the Uchiha destroy Konoha. Itachi said to Shisui. In Itachi's mind, Konoha and the Uchiha are such a community of interests. If they work together they will benefit, and if they don't, they will lose. So Shisui's can be said to be saving the Uchiha clan, and Itachi thinks it's the right thing to do. Haha. Shisui smiled when he heard this and said to Itachi, Itachi, although you have been very mature since you were a child, but some things are still too simple. Of course I am the same. Thinking of people as too kind, that's why I ended up in this situation. With that, Shisui put his face in front of Itachi's, so that Itachi can clearly see his face and also see his closed right eye. A trace of blood oozed out from the gap of his closed right eye. Because the amount of blood was very small, and Shisui has been deliberately hiding his right eye from the alley to the basement, so it was not discovered by Itachi. But this time, Itachi can see it clearly. Shisui's right eye is no longer in his eye socket. Shisui, how did your eye become like this? Itachi hurriedly asked anxiously. Shisui is like a brother to him, but one of his eyes is missing. Someone must have deliberately dug out Shisui's right eye. Such a situation made the usually calm and steady Itachi can't help but ignite a burst of anger in his heart, and he wants to take revenge on the person who hurt Shisui. The person who dug out my right eye, you know him. It's the leader of the wood leaf root, Shimura Danzo. Shisui's words are powerful, but they are like a heavy hammer hitting Itachi's head. Danzo? Itachi can't help but exclaim the name of Shimura Danzo. Many people think that the limit of the Sharingan is the 3 Tomo Sharingan, and even many clansmen think so. But the limit of the Sharingan is far from this. Above the 3 Tomo Sharingan, there is an eye that is close to the God's eye, Mangekyo Sharingan. Shisui looked at Itachi with his remaining left eye, which is the 3 Tomo state of the Uchiha clan's Sharingan. But in the red Sharingan, the Tomo spun faster and faster, and gradually merged together to form the shape of a 4-cornered pinwheel. Reaching out his hand and pointing to his eye, Shisui said to Itachi, "This is my Mangekyo Sharingan." Mangekyo Sharingan? Itachi's mouth also muttered this new state of the Sharingan. The right eye I lost was also a Mangekyo Sharingan, but it was taken away by Danzo. When Danzo took out my right eye, although my mind was fuzzy, I still vaguely heard some news. Although Danzo really wants to quell the rebellion of the Uchiha, Danzo's ultimate goal is to harvest our Uchiha's Kekkei Genkai, the Sharingan. Shisui said these cruel facts, and Itachi's idea of using Danzo's power to quell the Uchiha's rebellion was completely eliminated. After all, Danzo doesn't care whether the Uchiha clan can survive or not. Instead, he wants the Uchiha clan to die so that he can harvest more of the Uchiha clan's unique Sharingan. With such a purpose, how can he help Itachi to save the Uchiha clan? I also knew about this, that's why I tried my best to escape from Root's base. But I just happened to see Root's people take you to their base. I thought that Danzo will deceive you just like how he deceived me. I just want to tell you, whether it's the Uchiha clan or Wood Leaf people, don't believe him no matter how sincere he is in front of you. I also want to give you a gift. Gift? That's right. After saying that, Shisui stretched out his hand towards his only remaining left eye and dug it out. The bloody eye was placed in front of Itachi's eyes. My kaleidoscope's ability is a type of illusion called Kodo Amatsukami. The only thing that can break this illusion is my remaining left eye. Kodo Amatsukami is very scary, it can completely control a person without them knowing. Since my eyes have fallen into Danzo's hands, one day he will need to use this genjutsu. At this time, please use this eye of mine where it should be used. Chapter 123. Brother Shisui. Itachi looked at Shisui, who was standing in front of him, with a bloody scar on his handsome face. Where his eyes used to be, there were only 2 empty bone grooves left. If you really want to save the Uchiha clan, this is where we belong. In that case, you should keep this eye properly. Danzo will never let go of our Uchiha clan so easily, no matter what, no matter how bloody it is, no matter how hard it is for you to accept. You must keep the Uchiha bloodline alive with this eye of mine and with yourself. Shisui said very seriously, and Itachi also kept all these words in his heart. Shisui naturally saw the determination of his companion who grew up with him, so he put his hand on Itachi's shoulder and said, "Promise me, stay strong and live. As long as you're alive, there's still hope. I entrusted my eyes to you, so I can't stay in Wood Leaf anymore. Danzo will never give up on capturing me, so I have to leave temporarily. Brother Shisui, you have to take care of yourself. There's only hope if you're alive." Hearing Itachi's words, Shisui couldn't help but smile. This Itachi actually went back on his words. "Do you still need to worry about this kind of thing?" Shisui said to Itachi. But he still secretly asked himself in his heart, can he escape from Danzo's pursuit? He has lost his eyes and the difficulty of escaping is too high. Shisui knew this and Itachi naturally also knew this. But neither of them pointed it out. Whether it was Shisui who was being chased by Danzo or Itachi who stayed in the Uchiha clan. Neither of them was 100% safe, and the two of them also faced all kinds of dangers. Now the two of them were just cheering each other on. "I'm leaving." Shisui didn't look at Itachi, instead he turned around and walked into the shadows. After a while, he disappeared, and Itachi still stood in the same place, looking at the direction Shisui left. "Brother Shisui, if possible you must live well." "You must live well," Itachi said softly, then turned and left the basement. The light that was lit by Shisui just now quietly went out. "Lord 3 Generations, I hope to assist Wood Leaf in quelling the Uchiha clan's rebellion." In the Hokage's office, Itachi was kneeling in front of the 3 generations of Hokage. "Did Danzo tell you about this?" 3 Generations asked Itachi. "Yes, Danzo Sama gave me some documents. And after my own investigation, the contents of these documents are all true. Itachi didn't hide anything from the three generations. He directly told them about his conversation with Danzo. Looking at Itachi's face, Sandaime fell silent for a while. The Uchiha clan's intention to rebel was indeed a tricky matter because it involved a lot of Woodleaf interests. And how to appease it was also a problem. If only the main culprit was killed, it's hard to guarantee that some of the Uchiha clan's clansmen would hate it and breed a new rebellion. But if there was a massacre, it would lead to a counterattack by the Uchiha clan, which would greatly weaken the power of Woodleaf. This was also the reason why the three generations opposed to directly attacking the Uchiha clan. You go out first, I already know about the matter. If there is anything, I will look for you. Three generations took a puff from the pipe in his hand and exhaled the smoke. He sighed and said to Itachi, "That's right." This was Itachi's choice to deal with Danzo. Since Danzo wanted to kill the Uchiha clan, then the three generations of Hokage who was equal or even stronger than Danzo was also dragged into the water. Once Danzo wanted to directly exterminate the Uchiha clan, then the three generations would be the biggest obstacle to stop Danzo from committing such an evil act. Just yesterday the Uchiha clan received the information that the Uchiha clan's genius Uchiha Shisui was dead and his eyes were dug out. It was this news that made Itachi determined to have a showdown with the three generations of Hokage. "Danzo, what do you want?" After Itachi left, the three generations sat alone in his office, feeling a little irritable. Because Danzo actually carried out such a plan behind his back that involved the Uchiha clan. Although the Uchiha clan did such a thing, the three generations felt that Danzo was too eager, as if he was longing for something. "I just hope you don't do anything to endanger the safety of the Woodleaf, otherwise I will have to personally suppress you." The three generations said he couldn't help but think of his disciple Orochimaru, and his two disciples Jiraiya and Tsunade, who also escaped from the Woodleaf. "If you were still here, I wouldn't have to work so hard." Looking at the large pile of documents in front of him and all kinds of annoying things, the three generations couldn't help but sigh. He could only take a deep breath of his pipe and bury himself in these documents and complicated things again. Just as the three generations suffered from all kinds of annoying things, Itachi was immersed in the complicated situation of Shisui's death and the Uchiha clan's rebellion. Nangongja's house also ushered in an unexpected guest. A figure wearing a mask and a short black cloak suddenly appeared in the courtyard of his house opposite Nangongja. "Nangongja?" The figure said to Nangongja. His tone was very low, like an emotionless machine. "Umbo?" Looking at the figure's dress and the mask on his face, Nangongja had a faint guess in his heart. And this kind of mechanical way of action is very similar to the root ninja that Nangongja once encountered when he cooperated with him on a mission. "Would you please come with me?" The figure did not care about Nangongja's guess and continued talking. "Sorry, I have temporarily given up my identity as a ninja. So I won't go with you if there's nothing else, please go back." Although Nangongja is not a root ninja, he knows very well in his heart. Anything that had to do with root was bound to involve bloody massacres and all sorts of conspiracies. And this kind of thing is exactly what Nangongja wants to avoid. It's better to avoid trouble. Nangongja bluntly refused the request of the root ninja and asked him to leave. I didn't expect Nangongjonin to have such a temper, directly ignoring the request of my root ninja. In that case, I don't know if Nangongjonin is ready to go against my root ninja's consciousness? A voice came from behind the root ninja, slightly old but with an extremely strong majestic aura. Chapter 124. The root ninja who was standing in front of Kuroto immediately stepped aside, revealing the person who just spoke behind him. His right eye was bandaged, and his right arm was also bandaged and hidden in a black coat. Although his face can't be said to be old, there are some wrinkles on it. He looks slightly younger than the three generations Hokage of the same generation. But his left eye has an indescribable gloominess, like the eyes of an eagle, and after being stared at, you will feel extremely uncomfortable. So it's the leader of Root, Shimura Danzo-sama. Nangongja naturally recognized the leader of Root, who is an important part of the Woodleaf Defense Force, Shimura Danzo, and then slightly bowed and said, "Greetings, Shimura Danzo-sama. I don't know why Shimura Danzo-sama sent such a small shrimp to invite me?" Although he was slightly ridiculed by Nangongja, the root ninja who just talked to Nangongja didn't show any emotion at all. He just stood quietly beside Danzo without saying a word. But the muscles all over his body were tense, and obviously as long as Danzo gives the order, he will rush up and fight Nangongja to the death. "Small shrimp?" Danzo heard Nangongja's words and smiled, and then said to Nangongja, "Yes, maybe this subordinate of mine is not your opponent in a direct confrontation. But when did my root ninja become the strongest in a direct confrontation? If it's not a direct confrontation, then isn't it an assassination? Indeed, whether it's the Umbu or root, most of the time they carry out assassination missions. Almost no one would do such a thing in a head-on battle that caused a lot of commotion. The Umbu are supposed to fight in the dark, right? Then, what is the matter with Danzo-sama? Nangongja doesn't want to keep arguing with Danzo about who is the strongest because it's meaningless. Nangongja also doesn't like to pretend to be polite, so he directly told Danzo about it. He wants to know what Danzo wants to do. My purpose. Danzo stared straight at Nangongja with his left eye and said, I want you with Leaf Jonin Nangongja to join Root. Nangongja knows that Danzo must have a purpose for looking for him. But he didn't expect that Danzo wants Nangongja to join Root. Danzo-sama, don't you think you're taking things for granted? Nangongja said, although I'm not a high-ranking person in Konoha, I still have some influence in terms of combat power. Especially since I took over Kiba Ninja School, a lot of people know about me, and Danzo-sama directly came to recruit me. A lot of people won't be happy, right? Although Woodleaf seems very peaceful, there are actually a lot of hills. These hills won't directly fight with each other, but there are still all kinds of small conflicts. Naturally, Danzo was one of the more powerful ones among these mountain peaks. Once Nangongja joins Danzo's route, there is no doubt that Danzo's route will have a small increase in strength. Such a small improvement is very likely to directly break the weak balance between the mountains of Konoha, and the consequences would be unimaginable. Moreover, Root is not a good place. The members of the Umbu can leave the Umbu after meeting certain requirements and getting the approval of the Umbu head. However, Nangongja has never heard of anyone leaving the Umbu after joining Root. There is no big difference between joining Root and signing a contract to sell one's body. With Nangongja's character, how can he join Root? Not happy. Danzo heard Nangongja's words, and after repeating it with a little contempt, he continued, They are not happy. What does it have to do with me? Since I became the leader of Root, I have single-handedly led this new organization to grow up. In the process, how many people's interests have been violated, how many people are unhappy. But I am still alive and well, and Root is getting stronger and stronger. Those losers are unhappy. What can they do to me? Danzo indeed has something to be proud of. Because whether it is the Umbu or some other clans, they all relied on the legacy left by their ancestors and the efforts of several generations to develop. But Danzo can be said to have started from scratch, and pulled up such a violent organization. There is no need to say more about the hardships, and Danzo's ability is naturally obvious. Danzo-sama is naturally very powerful, to be able to establish Root single-handedly. But I am just an ordinary ninja, and now I am even a little tired of being a ninja. So I asked for an indefinite leave from Hokage-sama, and if I have nothing to do, I will go to the ninja school to teach children. Although it is dull, it is also very fun. Root is very powerful, but joining Root means that I'll have to start an endless slaughter. Although I am not the kind of super strong person who can suppress the ninja world, but I think I have the ability to protect myself and my family. So, I will not join Root. Danzo-sama, please go back. Nangongja was actually speaking from the bottom of his heart. From the beginning, Nangongja practiced martial arts so that he and his sister could join Woodleaf, so that their lives would not be so difficult. Although Nangongja participated in the ninja war, he also made a lot of contributions. But that is because Woodleaf has too many powerful people on top, and he is just an ordinary chunin. If he were to make any one of them unhappy, wouldn't he and his sister be crushed to death like ants? Therefore, Nangongja fought with all his might, trying his best to accumulate merits. Little by little, Nangongja's strength became stronger. Later, with the help of Leo and banishment, he became only half a step away from Kage level. Although this strength is not enough to crush everything, it is enough to ensure the safety of several people and survive in this war-torn world. Nangongja spent these years perfecting his swordsmanship and accompanying his family. Nangongja cherishes these days very much. He does not allow anyone to disturb their peace. Even if this person is the leader of Woodleaf's root, Shimura Danzo. Nangongja is not afraid to fight with him. Nangongja, I didn't expect you to be such a man who is satisfied with the status quo. Longing for some beauty, longing for a moment of peace. But have you ever heard of a saying? After listening to Nangongja's words, Danzo didn't pursue the matter any further. He turned around and walked out of the door with his men. Only one sentence is still echoing in the air. The tree wants to be still, but the wind will not stop. You have joined Woodleaf and become a ninja. It means that you have stepped into a whirlpool that you will never be able to break free from. You will come to me. Chapter 125. Danzo left, but his words left a great shock in Nangong's heart. Because Danzo's words were not without reason. In this chaotic world, there were too many things that were beyond one's control. Nangongja could be willful once and he could be willful twice. But there would always be times when he could not solve it with his own strength. What should he do at that time? Should he continue to be so stubborn and willful? Nangongja did not know and could only ponder at this moment. Suddenly, it was as if a light had suddenly appeared. Nangongja saw the heaven's tribulation sword that he had placed on the tribute platform. He thought of the person who had taught him for a long time, the person who he believed to be the #1 swordsman in the world, the master of the heaven's tribulation sword, banishment. Even if he had become a demon, even if he was despised by others, banishment had never changed his mind. Since he liked the sword, he would practice it well. Since he cherished his current life, he would do his best to protect everything he had. If he was not strong enough, then he would work hard to cultivate. Danzo's words were reasonable, but Nangongja was still very young and had a lot of potential. At this time, Nangongja might not be able to resist the fierce wind that wanted to disturb the tree, and he might not be able to defeat the thief with ulterior motives. But Nangongja's strength would not stop here, and it would only become stronger. Since it was not enough now, he would work 10 times harder, 100 times harder, 1,000 times harder, 10,000 times harder. One day, whether it was the fierce wind or the thief, they would all be insignificant things. Nangongja muttered to himself, "One day. If the wind wants to disturb me, I will use the sword in my hand to cut the wind. If someone wants to disturb me, I will use the sword in my hand to cut off their head." Nangongja walked with firm steps in front of his heaven's tribulation sword. Banishment Senior, one day I will make myself worthy of being the master of the heaven's tribulation sword. Whether it is me or the heaven's tribulation sword, I will make their names resound throughout the heavens. Clang, Nangongja pulled out the heaven's tribulation sword from its scabbard. The sword's resonating sound was like a dragon's roar, and its aura soared to the heavens. Clouds. The sword light illuminated Nangongja's face, and Nangongja's face was also illuminated by sword light. In the Uchiha clan's land, Patriarch Uchiha Fugaku and the elders of the Uchiha clan were gathered here. Everyone's face was filled with anger and hatred. If someone saw this scene, they would definitely be shocked. Are they still human? Why are they so frightening? You bullies. Hinksuis uses as new, as the desk let out an ear-piercing squeak. Uchiha Fugaku was burning with rage at this moment. Naturally, an ordinary desk would not be able to withstand the power that he had unleashed. A moment later it collapsed with a loud crash. The books, papers, brushes, and ink on the desk were scattered on the ground at this moment. It was a complete mess. Just like the mood of the Uchiha clan, it was chaotic and irritable. Uchiha Shisui is a rare genius of our generation, and he has made a name for himself in the shinobi world. However, such a genius had actually died. His eyes were dug out and thrown into the river. If it weren't for the fact that part of our clan's land is bordered by this river, the clan guards would have found Shisui's body. We still don't know about this yet. But what about the Woodleaf? Woodleaf didn't say anything at all. The elders of Kiba, the 3 generations, and Danzo, those 2 bastards, are probably laughing at our genius's premature death. Uchiha Fugaku's words were somewhat inappropriate. One must know that the Uchiha clan's elders, the elders of Kiba, the 3 generations, and Danzo can be said to be people of the same era. Since the elders of Kiba are all old bastards, then is the Uchiha clan's elders also a member of the old bastards? Fugaku. Calm down, you are the patriarch of the Uchiha clan. If you lose your calm at this time, then how can we make the right choice? Although the great elder was also very angry at this moment, he was still old. After all, he was different from the hot-blooded Uchiha Fugaku. The great elder had seen many things and suffered many grievances. Therefore he still knew how to control his emotions and timely reminded Uchiha Fugaku. After being reminded by the great elder, Fugaku calmed down a little. He stretched out his hand and a follower beside him handed a cup of tea to Fugaku. Not sure if it was because Uchiha Fugaku was too engrossed in shouting just now, but his throat was a little dry. He wanted to use this cup of tea to moisten his throat. That's right. In fact, Fugaku wasn't that angry, at least he didn't show it. After all, although Shisui was a genius, he wasn't in the same camp as Fugaku. In most cases, Shisui's relationship with the Uchiha elders was closer. This was also why the elders were so angry at this moment. Only a living genius was called a genius. and a dead genius was just a corpse. Fugaku was very clear about this point, and the elders didn't necessarily feel sorry for a genius like Shisui falling. Maybe they felt sorry for the precious resources they had invested in Shisui? But these words couldn't be said openly. If they said it, wouldn't it be a deliberate fallout? But no one thought that in fact Shisui's value was huge. Because Shisui's original 3-tomo Sharingan had evolved into Mangekyo Sharingan. Not to mention that there was a powerful illusion like Koto Amatsukami that could unknowingly control others. If Uchiha Fugaku and the elders knew about this, who knows how sad they would be that such a pair of Mangekyo Sharingan was lost. After Fugaku put on a show just now, it could be regarded as a slight comfort to the elders. At this time it was time to talk about serious matters. Elders, although Uchiha is not as strong as when Woodleaf first built the village, no one can bully us. Fugaku stood up and looked at the members of the Uchiha clan sitting below him. Ha ha ha. Fugaku stood up and looked at the Uchiha clan's members. With his hands behind his back, Fugaku's eyes were shining. We want to prove to the world that Uchiha is still strong. If it wasn't for Senju Takuma of the Senju clan, how could it be possible for a Senju clan ninja to take the power of Hokage? The pride of Uchiha doesn't allow us to bow down to others. This time we will use the power of the whole clan. Overthrow the rule of the Senju clan over Woodleaf. Let Hyuga, Yuanfei, Nara, Yamanaka, Orimikai, and all the people who support Hokage know that they have chosen the wrong person. They chose the wrong party to be loyal to. We, the Uchiha, are the real strongest clan in Konoha. We are the real ruler of Woodleaf. Uchiha Fugaku said, and he began to imagine himself wearing Hokage's Haori and wearing Hokage's hat, accepting the worship of all the ninjas and civilians of Woodleaf. It's really easy. Fast. People. Hard. Chapter 126. In the Hokage's office, the 3 generations were dealing with some daily documents, and from time to time they would frown for a moment. This is really an eventful time. The 3 generations couldn't help but sigh. Originally, ever since Danzo brought the news of the Uchiha clan's movements, the 3 generations have been a little restless, and at the same time the Woodleaf defense team also found many changes in the barrier. After investigation, it has been confirmed that ninjas from outside the village have sneaked into the village, but after searching for a while there was no trace of them, which made them very upset. Reporting to Hokage-sama. Suddenly, a black figure appeared in front of the desk of the 3 generations. It was a member of the Umbu, and at the moment he was half kneeling in front of the 3 generations. What's the matter? After seeing this Umbu, the 3 generations faintly felt that something was wrong. This Umbu was specially sent by the 3 generations to supervise the Uchiha clan, and since this person came, then there must be something wrong with the Uchiha clan. Just now, the Uchiha clan's ninjas who are proficient in barrier techniques were secretly mobilized, and according to the tracking of the Umbu, most of them are scattered in the Woodleaf defense team led by the Uchiha clan to patrol the Woodleaf village. And the frequency is very high. It is very likely that they are trying to figure out the pillars of the Woodleaf village. After the Umbu finished, he lowered his head and waited for the instructions of the 3 generations. Uchiha, I have spared you again and again, but you are still not willing to extinguish your evil intentions? The 3 generations also became a little angry, and he stretched out a hand to express his indignation. But suddenly, as if thinking of something, he asked the Umbu kneeling in front of him, even if the Uchiha clan is really disloyal, it is impossible for them to act so early. After all, they are still far from being prepared. So, what is the reason that angered the Uchiha clan's brute? Although the 3 generations didn't slap the table, but under the anger, it was inevitable that his mouth would not spare the Uchiha clan. The Umbu kneeling in front of the 3 generations seemed to recall some things when he was monitoring the village. Finally, he remembered some of the Uchiha clan's chatter that he occasionally heard. So he said to the 3 generations, because the Uchiha clan has a lot of powerful ninjas guarding the village, we can't directly go in to inquire the news. But occasionally we heard a few people who left the Uchiha clan's place to leave. But the Uchiha's Shisui to the Uchiha clan's death Shisui, Uchiha Shisui, even with his eyes. After reporting it to Hokage-sama, they didn't get the result they wanted. So many elders and Uchiha Fugaku as the clan's patriarch are still brooding over this matter. The 3 generations' eyebrows were crooked with anger. Just because of a dead genius, this group of people would do such an irrational thing? If this was the case, Uchiha Fugaku wouldn't be the clan's patriarch, and a group of Uchiha elders wouldn't be able to hold the position of the clan's patriarch. Dissatisfied? Since when did Uchiha see himself as a member of the Woodleaf clan? Now that one of their own is dead, they want to push the blame on Woodleaf clan's head? Let Woodleaf clans take the blame? It's easy to think. The three generations couldn't help but snort coldly and then said, all of this is just a show for outsiders to see. Perhaps that Uchiha clansman who let you hear the news did it on purpose. With such news, although the Uchiha clan's rebellion is still not justified, at least there will be a last layer of fig leaf. Geniuses can only be called geniuses when they are alive. Dead. That's just a corpse. He wondered how Uchiha Fugaku would react if he heard that the three generations actually held the same view as him. After all, the three generations had always presented Woodleaf with an amiable side. Who would have thought that the three generations also had such a cold and ruthless side? However, if Tua hadn't been so cold-blooded in the three generations, he wouldn't have been able to get the position of Hokage. In the past, Danzo had great ambitions for the position of Hokage, but even a cautious and ruthless person like Danzo lost in the hands of the three generations. Go and tell Danzo and Itachi Uchiha to come to the Hokage's office, but remember to tell them not to reveal themselves. Come quietly, it's time to beat some people who dare to come out. If a big tree doesn't occasionally trim its branches and leaves, it can't become tall and towering. The Umbu under the seat bowed his head and softly answered, and then disappeared. Only the three generations were left standing in front of the huge floor-to-ceiling window of the Hokage's office, looking at the Uchiha clan's land in the distance. Their eyes were deep, making people shudder with fear. Danzo, what are you planning? Nangongja was sitting at home. He still didn't understand why Danzo came to recruit him this time. When Danzo appeared, in fact, Nangongja was already prepared to have a good fight with Danzo and his men. But he didn't expect Danzo to leave after saying a few harsh words. Although Danzo's words were indeed very lethal, it also made Nangongja very restless at that time. But it was limited to this. To use such a few words to move Nangongja was too far away. Nangongja always felt that when Danzo left, he felt like he had seen through him. His weakness. Nangongro. Mashiro. Little linger. That's right, it must be like this. Root always did things unscrupulously. Kidnapping and blackmailing was the lowest level of behavior. It seems like during this period of time, I can't let those annoying flies continue to fly around my house. Nangongja's eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness, and even a trace of excitement. He had sealed his sword for 3 years and hadn't used it. 3 years of killing intent, 3 years of sword energy, were all brewing in his chest. He was only waiting for the day when the killing intent would erupt and let the Calamity Sword show its power. As he spoke, Nangongja had already picked up the Calamity Sword beside him. Today it's time to let those people see how powerful I am. So that they won't disturb my life. Nangongja exerted force with his ankle and shot up into the sky from his house's corridor. The huge force was clearly enough to make a person fly into the sky, but it didn't leave a single mark on the fragile wooden floor. There was an ancient saying, 3 years of silence, one amazing the world with a single brilliant feat. 3 years of silence, one soars to the heavens. If he hadn't killed anyone for 3 years, would his killing intent be overflowing? Chapter 127. Fresh blood spurted out from the body of a man in black in front of Nangongja, dyeing the ground red. The 18th one. Nangongja swung the long sword in his hand. The blood on the sword fell onto the trunk of a nearby tree due to the centrifugal force. The blood flowed down the tree like the water of the Three Roads River, marking the loss of a life. This was the 18th person Nangongja killed today for spying on his family. Nangongja didn't care which faction this person belonged to, nor did he care what kind of impact this person's death would cause. The reason was simple. Since they only sent one person to spy on Nangongja secretly. This proved that this faction didn't have the ability to directly deal with Nangongja, or rather, they didn't place their focus on Nangongja. Since that was the case, he killed him. For Nangongja, this was a short opportunity to show off his strength. Since there were people who wanted to kill him, wouldn't he be letting them down if he didn't reap their lives? Nangongja was still dressed in black. He carried the black Calamity Sword and walked into the courtyard of his house. Although Nangongja had tried his best to retract his murderous aura and hostility, it still leaked out a little, making people feel that there was a gloomy aura around him. Brother? Nangongja suddenly poked his head out of the house and saw Nangongja, who had just walked into the courtyard. His small nose twitched slightly, and he immediately noticed a thin but still detectable smell of blood. Coupled with the long sword in Nangongja's hand and the cold aura that lingered around his body. Nangong could easily guess what Nangongja had just done. After living with his sister for so many years, even if his sister didn't speak, Nangongja could sense that his sister wanted to ask what had happened. Therefore, without waiting for his sister to speak, he took the lead and spoke first. In the afternoon, the leader of Woodleaf Root, Danzo, came. He said a lot of things that I didn't understand and wanted to pull me into his roots to work for him. But when I refused, this guy didn't bother me at all and just left. There were no good people in Root, not to mention the leader of Root, Danzo. So, just in case, I got rid of all the people around our house who were sent by someone to spy on us. Don't go to Kiba Hospital for the next few days. Take a long leave. I've been at home for so long, but I haven't seen anyone come to recruit me. Even someone like Danzo is trying to recruit me. Something must have happened. Nangong nodded. She knew that what her brother said made sense. Therefore he didn't say much. But at this moment there was a knock on Nangongja's door. Nangong opened the door and found that it was Yechue standing at the door. Yabuki, what's wrong? At this moment, Yechue was panting as she held onto Nangongja's door frame. Obviously there was something urgent. Nangong quickly asked, "It's Mashiro? Mashiro is missing." Yechue was panting, but she still said the reason why she rushed to Nangongja's house. "Yabuki, don't worry. Explain the situation to us first. What's going on?" Nangongja also knew that Yechue wouldn't say such things without any basis. Since Yabuki said that Mashiro was missing, then something must have happened to Mashiro. The more it was like this, the more he couldn't be anxious. Nangongja quickly welcomed Yechue into his living room. "It's like this. Originally, I was responsible for looking after the store in the afternoon. Mashiro's sister looked after the store in the morning. But because Sakura didn't seem to be feeling well, I discussed with Mashiro to look after the store for the day. Mashiro also agreed. But when I accompanied Sakura to the hospital and was about to bring Mashiro to my house for dinner, I found that Mashiro wasn't in the store. I asked the staff, and they said that Mashiro was called out by someone wearing an Umbu uniform not long ago. After that, he didn't come back. I knew that things were bad. So I came to tell you that something happened to Mashiro." Yechue seemed to be anxious as she couldn't even speak smoothly. But Nangongja and Nangong clearly understood what Yechue meant. That was, Mashiro was taken away by the Umbu and there was no news of him until now. Only a few of those who were taken away by the Dark Group were able to return safely. So Yechue immediately came to find Nangongja, hoping that Nangongja would have a way to solve this matter. "Umbu uniform, kidnap, close people?" Nangongja murmured. Such a way of doing things and dressing up reminded him of the infamous Root Group's way of doing things. What's more, Danzo had previously tried to recruit Nangongja but was rejected. It wasn't unreasonable for them to kidnap Mashiro. And Nangong also knew that this matter might be related to Root. For a moment he became a little anxious. "Brother, Little Linger isn't home. Could it be?" Nangong didn't continue, but Nangongja still understood what his sister meant. Since Root could kidnap Mashiro, then it was naturally possible for them to kidnap Little Linger. Nangong was probably working at Kiba Hospital today, so Danzo couldn't directly barge into the hospital to kidnap her. And two close people were enough to threaten Nangongja, so Nangong wasn't that important. Nangongja's body instantly emitted a thick murderous aura. Today Nangongja was already annoyed by Danzo and even killed 18 people who were spying on his house. However, he was still one step behind Danzo. Mashiro and Little Linger were most likely already captured. In this situation, even if Nangongja was kind-hearted, he couldn't resist the urge to kill. And Nangongja wasn't a particularly friendly person, right? "Ruru, go to Kakashi's house now." These few days, Kakashi didn't have any missions, so he stayed at home. With Kakashi's strength, he can still guarantee your safety. Nangongja looked at his sister and said calmly, "What about you, brother?" Nangong couldn't help but ask. But just as the words left her mouth, Nangong had already guessed her brother's answer. "I'm going to pick up Mashiro and Little Linger. No matter who it is, anyone who dares to threaten me and treat the people close to me like this cannot be forgiven." Although Nangongja was still speaking very calmly, his anger was already burning fiercely. "Liang, protect me." Nangongja finally shouted out these words. A layer of black armor slowly covered Nangongja's body. "Ah, kid, it's already been 3 years. I haven't fought for 3 years and I can't hold it in anymore. Today I'll let those little guys see what we're capable of." Li Yang's voice sounded again. Her loud roar echoed in Nangongja's mind, as if she had just been freed from her restraints. I've sealed my sword for 3 years and now I see blood. 18 lives, that's still far from enough. Since they came to provoke me, I'll let them know what it means to be filled with killing intent. Chapter 128. Yabuki, don't go anywhere. Go to Kakashi's place with Ro. Since Root caught Mishiro and Little Linger, then everyone I care about and close to is facing danger. Shina Kushina has 3 generations watching over her. No one dares to touch her. But you are different. You have to be careful. Nangong's body was covered with the black armor that he had not worn for a long time. His head was also covered by the armor. A slightly strange voice came out from the black armor. Although Yachue had not seen Nangongja wearing the black armor, it was not the time to pay attention to such small matters. Yachue nodded, indicating that she understood Nangongja's intention. Ro, come here. Nangongja waved at Nangong Ro, allowing Nangong Ro to come to his side. Then he placed his hand on Nangong Ro's shoulder, and a soft voice was transmitted to Nangong Ro's ears. I have already left a mark on your body just in case. Don't tell anyone, okay? Then he raised his voice and said, I'm leaving. Wait until I bring back Mishiro and Little Linger, then we will discuss how to solve this matter. At this moment, Yachue, who was standing at the side, stared at Nangong's hand that was on Nangong Ro's shoulder. No one knew what she was thinking. Nangongja exerted strength in his legs and left his house at an extremely fast speed. In an instant, he had disappeared without a trace. Although I know that you are anxious to save them, do you know where their base is? Although I don't know how strong Root is, this kind of organization that specializes in dirty work is not easy to find, right? Liang was very strange. Nangongja's behavior was not like the Nangongja she knew. Although the Nangongja of the past knew that someone close to him was kidnapped, he would definitely be furious. However, he would never be so angry and irrational as he was now. However, Liang was a familiar beast that was connected to Nangongja's life. Nangongja's mental state was actually very calm. But there was definitely something wrong with acting so agitated. Liang did not know Nangongja's plan, but she still cooperated with Nangongja's act. It's very simple, because the one who came to my house and told me that Mishiro is missing is not the real Yabuki. Nangongja stopped running and looked around. He knew that he had run far away. Therefore he stopped and said slowly, Fake. Humph, did she think that she could fool me just because she acted like Yabuki? When Yabuki panted in front of my house, I felt that something was wrong. Because I was very clear about Yabuki's stamina, although she did not usually show it. But just the distance from the clothing store to my house was not enough for Yabuki to be panting like this. After that, Yabuki told me and Ruro about how she found out that Mishiro was kidnapped. Although it was logical, I still faintly felt that something was wrong. So I deliberately pretended to be angry in front of her. If it was the usual Yabuki, she would definitely try to calm me down. But this person seemed to want me to leave immediately and did not try to stop me. When I called Ruro, I specifically used Rower, a nickname that I would not normally use. If it was the Yabuki who was familiar with us, even if she did not notice it, she would subconsciously have some reaction. But this person did not react at all, as if that was how I should call Rower. After that, I pressed on Ruro's shoulder. That person also kept staring at my hand. It seems that she also thought that I left a mental imprint on Ruro's body. Although she tried her best to make it hard for others to notice her gaze, I have been trying to let natural energy enter my body to strengthen my body after I was able to use it. Therefore I could still feel the gaze from him. There are already so many suspicious points. Is it not enough for me to think that this person is not the real Yabuki? Nangongja said his conjecture, but there was something that he did not say. That was, after he saw this person he felt a surge of blood in his heart. This kind of feeling made Nangongja feel that there was something fishy. He left behind a sense of caution in everything he did. I didn't think that you would grow so much in these 3 years. Hearing Nangongja's words, Liang also felt that Nangongja had indeed grown a lot. In this kind of place where you don't know when the enemy will take your head, this kind of caution is necessary. Then what are we going to do now? Liang continued to ask after praising Nangongja. After all, since Nangongja dared to let Nangong Ro stay with the fake Yachue, he naturally had a plan, right? It's very simple. Wait. The imprint I left on Ruro's body is not 1 but 2. The method to isolate the aura can only isolate the spiritual imprint on the surface. On the deeper imprint, I added a wisp of my own sword energy. No matter how I isolate it, it can't cut off the connection between me and my sword energy. Even if the fake Yachue endangers Ruro's life, the sword energy will explode. Let's directly kill that person. Nangongja said calmly, but in fact he was still a little worried. If it wasn't for Mashiro and Little Linger being taken to God knows where by this group of root ninjas, he wouldn't take such a risk and do something that might harm his sister. Although he made thorough preparations, Nangongja still felt a little sorry for his sister. Yabuki. Shall we go to Kakashi's house now and find Kakashi? Nangong-ro looked at Yachue who was standing beside her and asked. There was still some worry on her face. It was unknown whether she was worried about Mashiro and Little Linger or her brother. Kakashi's house? No. We don't need to go to Kakashi's house. A strange smile suddenly appeared on Yachue's face, making people feel very scared. Her hands suddenly formed a contact transformation technique, and smoke instantly rose from Yapui's body. Soon, the smoke dissipated, revealing a ninja wearing umbu attire and a chameleon mask. You should come with us directly to Root. Let's see how much your brother cares about you. Will he join Root for you? Several shadows jumped over the wall of Nangongja's house and instantly surrounded Nangong-ro. Several people came forward and tied Nangong-ro tightly with ropes, and one of them took out a talisman and stuck it on Nangong-ro's body. Every Root ninja was immersed in the joy of completing the mission, but no one noticed that Nangong-ro's mouth had a trace of a smile. Chapter 129. Nangongja suddenly raised his head, apparently noticing something. They have already subdued and blocked my mark. Nangongja didn't wait for Nangong-ro's answer. He directly moved to the place where Nangong-ro's mark sensed. Several Root ninjas felt that it wasn't easy to make Nangongja ignore his sister's safety. After subduing Nangong-ro, they quickly rushed to their destination. As for where Nangongja went? In fact, the Root ninjas didn't care at all. Because even if Nangongja found the Hokage, he wouldn't know where the Root headquarters is located. Let's try to hurry up and hand over Nangong-ro to Sama. Only then can we be considered to have completed this mission. The Root ninja with the chameleon mask said to his subordinates who were escorting Nangong-ro. The Root ninjas also knew that once Nangongja reacted, it would be difficult for them to complete their mission. Therefore they all sped up their journey. The surrounding trees turned into afterimages, and the Root ninjas were rushing, while Nangongja was far behind. They stopped. Nangongja suddenly found that the people who were with Nangong-ro had stopped moving, and he knew that he had arrived at the place he was looking for. Nangongja naturally couldn't let Nangong-ro fall into the hands of the enemy, so he immediately sped up and caught up with the Root ninjas who were holding Nangong-ro. You guys, let her go and I can consider leaving your bodies intact. Nangongja suddenly appeared in front of the Root ninjas, and then said with a calm and cold face. How is this possible? We clearly used the best talisman to isolate Nangong-ro's aura. How did you find her so quickly? The chameleon mask ninja saw Nangongja's figure and was shocked. The chameleon mask Root had seen Nangongja's information before. Naturally, he recognized that the person covered in black armor with a lion figure was the Nangongja that he thought he had successfully deceived. In order to prevent Nangongja from discovering Nangong-ro's whereabouts, the talisman used by the chameleon mask Root to seal Nangong-ro's presence was a high-grade talisman from the Root's collection. Even a shadow tier wouldn't be able to discover the presence of something sealed by a talisman. Even if Nangongja was strong, he was far from being a tier ninja. Otherwise, Danzo wouldn't use this method to try to control Nangongja. I say. Nangongja suddenly sped up. The black armor on his body began to glow with black lightning rolling over it. The lightning was like a dragon bathing in the sea of clouds, roaming freely. At the same time, Nangongja's speed sharply increased under the stimulation of the lightning. He arrived behind the two Root ninjas who were holding Nangong-ro. He didn't even think about it as he swiftly cut off the heads of the two ninjas with his sword. I'm not a villain, why are you talking nonsense with me? Why don't I just kill you directly? I need to explain a little bit. Nangongja paused for a moment, and at the same time he arrived behind the other Root ninjas. It was still a simple move, and the heads of the Root ninjas who were trained by Danzo, who were known as the Woodleaf Guardians, fell to the ground. His figure flashed a few times, and only the chameleon mask ninja was still standing in the same place. The other Root ninjas were all killed by Nangongja. Nangongja stood in front of the chameleon mask ninja, and the black sword with a trace of blood was directly pointed at the chameleon mask ninja's forehead. Are you stupid or am I stupid? You! The chameleon mask ninja just opened his mouth to say something, but Nangongja had already pierced his head with his sword. You want to talk? Sorry. Looking at the chameleon mask ninja on the ground, Nangongja picked his ears, and glanced at his black sword that was covered with some yellow and white filth, and said with some disgust, "You made my sword so dirty, who has time to listen to you? Little gecko." Nangong Ro had originally come to watch her brother slaughter everyone. Furthermore, she had seen so many people being beheaded and lying not far from her. Nangong Ro also felt a little uncomfortable, but when she heard Nangongja actually said that the chameleon-masked ninja was a gecko, she couldn't help but interrupt. "Brother, he's a chameleon?" Nangongja stared blankly at the mask of the root ninja that he had just pierced through with his sword. "Chameleon? Gecko? Aren't they similar? They're both lizards." "Brother, you gave me so many things to complain about, do you want me to complain to my heart's content? I'm not a complaining slave, hey?" Okay. It was certain that at this moment, Nangong Ro was slightly enraged. After saying so many strange things, Nangongja also knew that this was not a good time to talk to his sister. Thus, he hurriedly changed the topic and said, Okay, these things should wait until I rescue Mishiro and Little Linger before going back to talk about it." Obviously, Nangong Ro also knew that now was not the time to complain, so she nodded and indicated that these things could wait until everyone returned home to slowly educate her stupid brother. "Liang, can you build a stable space channel now?" Nangongja suddenly asked Liang, who was connected to his life. "Of course, these 3 years I haven't been doing nothing, okay? You're preparing to?" Liang immediately answered Nangongja's question. "That's right, I already feel that wood leaf is completely unsafe now. It's safer to first send Ruru to the alternate dimension where the Lion Clan resides. After rescuing Mishiro and Little Linger, I will also send them to the alternate dimension. When the situation in Woodleaf stabilizes, I will bring them back." "But, brother," after listening to Nangongja's words, Nangong Ro suddenly walked to Nangongja's side. She just opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but Nangongja's serious look made her swallow her words. "This matter is not negotiable. I love you very much, but I hope that you can be safe and sound. This is also the reason why I didn't agree to let you sign up as a combat ninja, but instead let you become a medical ninja." Nangong Ro looked at her brother and listened to her brother's words. For a while, she couldn't find any reason to refute her brother because Nangongja's words were indeed reasonable. With Nangongja's character, he would never let himself fall into any kind of dangerous situation. So she could only lower her head and remain silent. Nangongja gently placed his black-armored hand on Nangong Ro's head. Just as he was about to rub his sister's head, Nangong Ro suddenly stopped him. But he found that he couldn't touch his sister's head with his armor, so he could only take back his hand. He inserted the tribulation sword into the ground. Under Li Yang's control, the lightning on the black armor slowly surged. Following the direction of the tribulation sword, it flowed to the ground like water and slowly formed a space shuttle formation. Chapter 130. Soon, the array composed of black lightning slowly stabilized. The light wasn't as dazzling as before, and it was engraved on the ground with a faint glow. "Ro. Go to the Lion Tribe's alternate dimension first. I've already told Li Yang to inform his descendant in the alternate dimension. It's a little lion called Arthur. He'll take good care of you. I'll quickly rescue Mishiro and Little Linger and meet you in the alternate dimension." Nangongja looked at his sister and said. Nangong Ro looked at her brother. She didn't want to leave her brother's side and let him face a colossus like Root alone. However, Nangong Ro knew that with her little strength she couldn't help Nangongja much. She might even be a burden. Rather than that, she might as well go to a safe place and wait for Nangongja to find her. Although waiting was torturous, Nangong Ro would rather suffer than add trouble to her brother. "Okay." Nangong Ro's voice was a little soft as if she was trying her best to suppress her emotions. He wanted to make a rational decision, so he slowly walked into the magic array. However, the moment the formation was activated, Nangong Ro suddenly turned her head and looked at her brother. The faintly discernible voices were clearly transmitted into Nangongja's ears. "You have to come back alive." Nangongja didn't know what to say because when the words came out of Nangong Ro's mouth, Nangong Ro's eyes were also filled with hot tears. Facing his sister's tears, Nangongja couldn't bring himself to harden his heart. However, Mishiro and Little Linger were also his family. They were family that he had decided to protect. Home was never a physical location. Instead, it was a group of people who tolerated each other, protected each other, and lived together. Only when he, Nangong Ro, Mishiro, and Little Linger were together could it be considered a complete family. Nangong Ro's figure disappeared into the array. Nangongja knew that his sister no longer had anything to worry about. His only goal now was to rescue Mishiro and Little Linger. After that, he would cultivate properly and strengthen Mashiro, Nangong Ro and Little Linger. No matter how powerful he was, he couldn't split himself up. He was different from those ninjas. He didn't know any jutsu like cloning technique. If he was alone, then he had to make sure that Mashiro, Nangong Ro and Little Linger had enough strength before he could be at ease. He had been too confident in himself before. Li Yang, how is it? Did you find anything like an entrance? Nangongja asked Li Yang. After all, the most important thing now was to rescue Mashiro and Little Linger. Everything else could be put aside for the time being. But generally, this kind of secret base would have some kind of array protecting it. Nangongja wasn't very proficient in this kind of thing. He could only rely on Li Yang's experience to solve this array. I think I know what kind of array this is. Li Yang snorted and then said her opinion and judgment. Although this array is different from the ones in my time, the basic principle is still the same. That is, by artificially changing the landscape, flowers, and trees to attract natural energy between heaven and earth, as well as all kinds of elemental energy to achieve the goal of the person who built the array. Therefore, there were some things that remained the same no matter how many changes there were. This array is the same. I found that the main function of this array is to attract natural energy to achieve concealment, illusion, and some offensive effects. So, I've already thought of a solution. How am I supposed to deal with such a formation? Nangongja hurriedly asked when he heard Li Yang's explanation. He even said that he already knew how to break the formation. It's actually very simple. Because you are the best person to solve this array. There are several centers in the array that are used to circulate and regulate natural energy. Only the regulated energy can be used by the array. Once the regulated energy is gone, the array will become unstable. If the energy was too unstable, it would cause the entire formation to collapse. You can use the Calamity Sword to communicate with natural energy. For the past few years, you have been trying to directly use natural energy in your body. So, your sensitivity to natural energy is beyond ordinary people. Even I can't compare to you. Now, as long as you carefully feel the natural energy, you will be able to find the centers used to regulate it. As long as we can destroy these centers, it is equivalent to breaking the array. Nangongja didn't understand this kind of thing, but Li Yang explained it so clearly. Nangongja also felt that this was the best and fastest solution, so he nodded and closed his eyes to concentrate. A cool feeling began to rise from the back of Nangongja's head. At first, it drifted upwards, but gradually seeped into Nangongja's brain. For a moment, Nangongja felt that his 5 senses were greatly improved. The cool feeling seemed to know that it couldn't do much in Nangongja's brain, so it left a part of its energy to maintain the state of Nangongja's brain. It followed the spine all the way down, and scattered into several small streams of energy that flowed into Nangongja's organs. Then, just like the brain, when the optimization of the organs reached a stable state, the cool feeling gathered again. The cool energy gathered again and slowly entered Nangongja's meridians. It combined with the internal energy that originally existed in Nangongja's meridians, and flowed along Nangongja's meridians to his 4 limbs. Bit by bit, it stimulated Nangongja's potential. Although it took a long time, the process was actually very fast. It was faster than the blink of an eye. The most obvious change on Nangongja's body was the appearance of a silver pattern on Nangongja's forehead. Although it looked like a few ordinary lines, it didn't look very eye-catching. It wasn't even that conspicuous under the sun, but if one were to seriously and carefully look at the silver patterns on Nangongja's spiritual palace, they would involuntarily feel a wave of dizziness. It was as if the lines weren't simple lines, but were formed by many difficult-to-see runes gathered together to form a line. A few lines formed the pattern on Nangongja's forehead. This was Nangongja's immortal mode. It was the true state after the natural energy was integrated into his body. It was also the key to breaking the formation. Chapter 131. Open. Nangongja muttered in his heart, and the silver mark on his forehead emitted a faint light. A few simple lines contained countless runes that were slowly moving, indicating that the runes were being activated. The boundless natural energy that was distributed between heaven and earth turned into small green light spots in front of Nangongja's eyes. The area in front of Nangongja that was supposed to be covered by a magic circle had turned into a magic circle formed by a river of green light spots. In the magic circle, the intersection of some of the green rivers had turned into a small lake of green light spots. This should be the center of the magic circle that Li Yang mentioned, and also the key to the operation of the magic circle. Li Yang, I have found the center of the magic circle that you mentioned. Do we just need to destroy them one by one? Nangongja asked Li Yang, who had transformed into his black armor. Of course, as long as the central point is destroyed. If the center of the magic circle is destroyed, the magic circle will exist in name only. Nangongja nodded, and the black armor on his body began to surge with lightning. Slowly, the lightning energy became more and more active, and Nangongja's body magically left the ground and floated up an inch. "What are you doing?" Li Yang saw Nangongja's strange behavior and couldn't help but ask. "Since we are destroying the nodes, why don't we just destroy them once in a while?" Nangongja said as if it was a matter of fact. Shouldn't we destroy the nodes one by one, then sneak into Root's headquarters to rescue Mishiro and Little Linger? Although Li Yang had always been arrogant and violent, he was exceptionally meticulous when doing things. While achieving his goal, he had to pay the smallest price. Nangongja's current behavior made Li Yang feel that it didn't conform to his standards. "It's very simple. I will use the lightning energy on the black armor to float in the air temporarily and destroy the entire magic circle," Nangongja said matter-of-factly. Li Yang, who was in his black armor, was dumbfounded. "What? Won't this attract more enemies? It's not worth it," Li Yang said hurriedly, as if she wanted to stop Nangongja from doing such a dangerous thing. This time, the goal was obviously to rescue Mishiro and Little Linger, who were captured, so there was no need to mobilize a large number of root ninjas. However, Nangongja shook his head. He continued to stimulate the lightning energy on his black armor so that he could ascend even higher. "You can't escape. I've worked with root ninjas before, so I know what kind of people they are. Each of them is a member of the huge machine that is Root. They don't care about the life or death of their fellow root ninjas. Previously, they had specially sent a small team to lure me away from Ruru's side and capture Ruru. Root must have given them a fixed time to carry out the mission. Once they exceed the time limit, Root will automatically think that their mission has failed. Moreover, they must make all preparations to prevent the enemy from invading. In order to not let Ruru fall into danger, I killed the root ninjas as soon as possible. During this time, it's very likely that they have exceeded the time limit set by root ninjas. We can't gamble with our own safety on the enemy's reaction speed. Since Root wants to use Mishiro and Little Linger's lives to threaten me, then at least they won't kill Mishiro and Ruru before I'm completely on the opposite side of Root and can't be controlled. With Danzo's arrogant personality, even if I directly attack Root's headquarters, it will only make him want to recruit me more. Mishiro and Little Linger's lives will also be guaranteed. This is actually a disguised form of showing my strength, to let Danzo and the entire Woodleaf know if my strength is worth provoking. Nangongja said very clearly. It also made Li Yang feel that Nangongja was already different from the youth she taught little by little. At the beginning, Nangongja's experience and methods were actually imitating Li Yang's habits to a certain extent. But now, with the rise of Nangongja's strength, and the increase of various things he experienced, the current Nangongja has formed his own way of dealing with people. Although this is very good, Li Yang couldn't help but hide a slight trace of loneliness in her heart. In Li Yang's eyes, Nangongja was a junior that she watched grow up step by step. Although when he was weak, Li Yang was worried that he would be in danger. But now that Nangongja has become such a mature and independent person, the loneliness and melancholy of her own child finally growing up and becoming independent will not disappear for a long time. Since you've already thought it through so clearly, then do things according to your ideas. Although Li Yang's heart was filled with all kinds of complicated emotions, she still said this to Nangongja. Nangongja also nodded and focused on what he was doing now. Now that Nangongja was about 20 meters above the forest, the situation below could be seen clearly. Nangongja could also see the natural energy nodes through the emblem in his heart, especially clearly. Nangongja held his tribulation sword upside down in front of him, and slowly let go of the sword in his hand. The tribulation sword was not pulled down by gravity, but it was suspended in front of Nangongja. The sword chi in his body constantly poured into the tribulation sword, turning into a sharp sword chi that was as sharp as a sword's edge. It gathered around Nangongja. In the beginning, the sword chi that was born was very slow, but slowly more and more sword chi appeared. The outline of the sword chi gradually became clearer, and it was a divine dragon. Head like a camel, horns like a deer, eyes like a rabbit, ears like a cow, neck like a snake, belly like a snake, scales like a carp, claws like an eagle, and palms like a tiger. It was different from the sword chi dragon that Nangongja unconsciously formed when Nine Tails attacked the village. Instead, it formed a lifelike divine dragon that kept circling around. Nangongja was at the reverse scale of the sword chi dragon. Since he wanted to show off his muscles, he naturally had to let this group of ninjas see the strength of an internal force cultivator. The sword chi dragon that had once fought Ninetails head-on was the best choice. Originally, it was just a sword chi dragon with a slight dragon shape, but it was already able to fight against the nine-tailed sword chi. Then how powerful would this fully formed sword chi dragon be? Chapter 132. Nangong's sword chi dragon was now completely formed. At this moment, the sword chi dragon exuded a dragon's aura that was different from any other aura. Originally, in a dense forest, Nangongja could still hear the chirping of cicadas and birds from time to time. However, when the sword chi dragon was formed, the voices seemed to have been frightened. Not a single sound could be heard. The catastrophe sword, which was originally floating in front of Nangongja, began to slowly move up to the mouth of the sword chi dragon. Endless sword chi was emitted from the catastrophe sword, wrapping the catastrophe sword into a ball. It turned into a dragon pearl in the sword chi dragon's mouth. Very good. Nangongja sensed the state of the sword chi dragon that he had condensed. He felt that the sword chi dragon was now the most perfect he could do. If he wanted to strengthen the sword chi dragon even more, he might have to break through the threshold of the so-called shadow level. Nangongja, who was floating in the air above the forest, looked at the formation below. His eyes revealed a slight seriousness and he shouted, "Go!" The dragon pearl formed by the catastrophe sword began to rush towards one of the central points, and the sword chi dragon followed closely behind. Although the sword chi dragon already had the shape of a dragon, Nangongja could not completely control it as he wished. Therefore he relied on the dragon pearl formed by the catastrophe sword to aim and track the target. This was a big weakness of the sword chi dragon. The charging time was a little long, and the method to lock onto the enemy was a little complicated. This caused this move to not be able to play its greatest role in a one-on-one battle. This sword chi dragon was actually more suitable to be used on the battlefield as a strategic weapon. After all, there were many people on the battlefield. Even if the catastrophe sword was not used to guide the sword chi dragon, the sword chi dragon would still be able to display great power. The energy lake formed by the natural energy condensed through the central point was not a particularly strong existence. Instead, it was a little too weak. When the sword chi dragon rushed towards the natural energy lake under the guidance of the dragon pearl, the dragon pearl's head had just touched the lake when the lake was washed away. The natural energy that was washed away did not dissipate into the world. Instead, it turned into a fluorescent light that replenished the sword chi dragon and the catastrophe sword. That's right, the natural energy was absorbed by the sword chi dragon and the catastrophe sword that was released by Nangongja. This time, 80% of the energy was replenished by their sword chi dragons, while 20% flowed into the heavenly tribulation sword. This was the result after Nangongja's calculation. Because of the catastrophe sword chi dragons had a very close relationship with the natural energy. To the natural energy sword chi dragon's sword, sword chi's own sword chi dragon pearl sword. To the sword chi's ki to the sword to sword. Nangongja specifically chose the central point with the smallest natural energy lake among the 36 central points. In fact, it's to let the sword chi dragon absorb more natural energy and become more powerful. This time, the sword chi dragon absorbed the natural energy lake's energy and strengthened by almost 20%. The remaining natural energy lakes have more and more natural energy than the previous one. If all the natural energy lakes are absorbed, then the sword chi dragon pearl will be at least 5 times stronger than it is now. It can be said that this sword chi dragon pearl has already surpassed the strongest summoned beast in the world. Since I spent so much natural energy to build this sword chi dragon pearl, I naturally have to make it more valuable. Nangongja felt the strength of the sword chi dragon pearl, and began to calculate the strength of the sword chi dragon pearl after absorbing all the natural energy lakes. However, after the sword chi dragon pearl destroyed the natural energy lakes, it still inevitably hit the ground. As one of the guardian forces of the wood leaf, Root naturally discovered the abnormality outside their base and quickly sent people to check the situation. What the group of Root ninjas saw at this moment was a sword chi dragon pearl with a blue luster surging on the ground. If you want to describe it, there is a sentence that might be more appropriate. The heavens and earth turn, the earth dragon rises from the ground. The sword chi dragon pearl looked like it was surging in the waves, raging on the ground. From time to time, ear-piercing sounds like the clashing of swords could be heard. It made everyone's head dizzy. Captain, isn't that the strange dragon pearl that appeared in the sky when the Nine Tails attacked the village? A Root ninja saw the sword energy dragon and couldn't help but recall the time when the QB attacked the village. He fought with the QB for a long time and fought with the QB for a long time. Sword chi dragon pearl. the captain muttered to himself. It seems that the squad really failed in their mission. Nangongja has already found them. I will go inside and inform Danzo-sama, you guys keep an eye on this Nangongja. After saying this, the captain turned around and wanted to enter the root base. But a figure suddenly appeared at the entrance of the root base. It was a person with a wrapped right eye and a right hand wrapped in black clothes. The person who came is the leader of the woodleaf root, Shimura Danzo. Looking at Nangongja's powerful appearance at the moment, Danzo's mouth actually showed a rare smile. Not bad, not bad. As expected of the person I took a fancy to, he really didn't let me down. Not only did he not take away his sister, but he also tracked us to our base. And now, he even used such a magical move. I don't know how much stronger he is compared to 3 years ago. Very good, I am more and more interested in pulling him into the root base. After saying this, Danzo looked at the root squad captain who was about to inform him. His eyes became cold as he said, "Is this how you patrol the perimeter of the base? They only found out after such a big commotion. That's really something." The captain's legs began to tremble uncontrollably at this moment. Others may not know, but as a member of Root and a captain, the captain was very clear about Danzo's terror and power. Danzo-sama, it's not that we didn't patrol properly. You also saw that Nangongja is so strong even if we wanted to stop him. The captain hurriedly defended himself. After all, the captain was just an elite chunin. Nangongja's sword Chi Dragon Pearl plowed a 3-meter deep hole on the ground just by brushing past it. If a small shrimp like the captain really rushed up, he would probably be ground to pieces in an instant. Chapter 133. Danzo just quietly listened to his subordinate's explanation without any change in his expression. It was as if he was listening to a story that had nothing to do with him. Not only did he not feel anything, but he also felt a little dispirited. Are you done? Finally, when the squad leader wanted to say something, he saw Danzo's expression. His legs immediately went soft and he knelt on the ground. Sir, I beg you, since I joined Roots, I have been doing my best. I have done a lot of dirty work. Even if I don't have any merits, I still have some hard work. Please spare my life on account of my unwavering loyalty to Root, my lord. Sir. At this moment, the squad leader seemed to realize that his explanation was useless, so he hurriedly told Danzo how loyal he was to Roots, and how much he longed for another chance to prove himself. However, Danzo still didn't change his expression. It seemed like Danzo was tired of the squad leader's words. If this goes on, maybe Danzo will start yawning. As soon as he stretched out his hand, a Root ninja immediately went to Danzo's side and handed a katana to Danzo with both hands. Danzo looked at the squad leader quietly and put the katana in his hand on the squad leader's neck. If an ordinary person had a katana on their neck, even if the other party was their superior, they would still fight with all their might. After all, if an ordinary person gets angry, blood will splash everywhere, let alone someone who wants to take their life. However, the squad leader could only tremble in fear under Danzo's indifferent gaze. Every member of Roots was brainwashed and trained by Danzo from a young age to become a completely loyal fighting machine. They were the ones who Danzo had a fatal weakness. From the squad leader's performance, he was naturally not a loyal follower of Danzo. If he was really a loyal follower of Danzo, he would have already killed himself. Why bother wasting Danzo's time? Actually, it's normal to fail a mission. Who hasn't failed a mission before? After all, even the woodleaf White Fang Hataki Mauso had given up on a mission before. Your strength is far inferior to Hataki Mauso's, so failing the mission is not something unforgivable. Danzo's expression instantly turned amiable. If he ignored the machete he was holding against the captain's neck, perhaps Danzo would look more like an uncle next door. However, your real mistake wasn't failing the mission. Instead, he underestimated the enemy, was impatient, and found excuses for himself. When you kidnapped Nangong Ro, you didn't check if there was any hidden mark on her body. Instead, you used the talisman that I gave you. The talisman is indeed powerful, but it's not omnipotent. Second, after capturing Nangong Ro, you acted like a fool and went straight to our base. Although I gave you a time limit for the mission, that time was enough for you to find and even get rid of the people who were following you, but you still didn't do anything. Finally. This is what makes me angry the most. Failure, arrogance, impatience, these things are human nature. Even if I am angry with you, I won't harm your family, but you have been looking for excuses for yourself. You are forcing me to take you, kill. Chicken. Dog. Monkey. Danzo's last 4 words were full of murderous intent. Directly, the head of the squad leader was thrown into the air. Blood gushed out from his neck. Danzo didn't pay attention to the body of the squad leader who was still in a kneeling position. Instead he looked at Nangongja. I have already seen through it. I don't know what method this kid used to destroy the center of the formation and absorb the formation's energy at the same time. But I am too lazy to stop him. Since I want to subdue him, I naturally have to defeat him when he is at his strongest. Come on. Let me see what you look like after you've completely absorbed the power of the formation. Danzo muttered to himself, but Nangongja naturally couldn't hear it. However, Nangongja was also very puzzled. The commotion he created wasn't small. No matter how stupid the root ninjas were, they should have organized a force to stop him after such a long time. Originally, Nangongja had expected that he would only be able to absorb half of the 36 central nodes, which meant that he would have made a profit by absorbing 18 of them. However, Nangongja had already absorbed 27 of them. Only the 9 strongest central points had yet to be absorbed. This made Nangongja feel a little flustered because all of this was too illogical. Fine. Since I can absorb more natural energy, I'll be able to increase my own strength. Why not? Even if Danzo really has some kind of plan. That way I can have more bargaining chips to fight him head-on. Nangongja thought for a while and finally figured it out. He directly absorbed the natural energy that was easily scattered by the sword energy dragon without any scruples. Time passed by like this, with Nangongja's eagerness and Danzo's indifference. Time naturally passed faster. Boom. A loud explosion occurred on the ground. This was the sound of Nangongja breaking through the last and strongest center of the formation. The energy wave instantly swept the surrounding ground. The trees near the center of the energy wave were also overturned by the energy wave. They became crooked, and a few were uprooted by the energy wave and thrown into the distance. Nangongja finally absorbed all the natural energy. He felt his aura and the energy level of the sword energy dragon. Nangongja knew that this is already the strongest power he can exert. This is also the only chance Nangongja has to fight for his life. If he can't fight against Danzo like this, Nangongja can only desperately rescue Little Linger and Mashiro, and directly use the formation to teleport them to the different space where the Lion Clan is, and wait for the limelight to pass before returning to the ninja world. Of course, now is not the time to think about the escape route. Now Nangongja only needs to fight to the death. Seize all possible opportunities to win, and fight against Danzo head-on. Fight. And then win. Only in this way can Nangongja realize the martial arts spirit in his heart. Maybe this is also the time when Nangongja breaks through the bottleneck, and truly combines the 3 elements of heart, technique and physique into one, breaking through to the so-called Kage level. This battle had to be fought. Chapter 134. Danzo? Nangongja looked at Danzo, who was standing on the ground, and for a moment his face became ugly. Because in Nangongja's view, even if he is not the strongest person in Woodleaf, he is still a powerful Woodleaf ninja. However, Danzo simply watched Nangongja destroy the Root Guard's formation with an indifferent look on his face. He didn't even try to stop Nangongja. If you have to describe Nangongja's mood at this moment, it's like a lion performing on a stage. Baring his fangs, he wantonly showed his strength. But a beast tamer just stood beside the lion with an indifferent face, quietly watching the lion pretending to be strong, gently stroking the slightly rough leather whip in his hand, waiting for the lion to feel the proudest and give it a fierce whip, making the lion completely submit. Just like that, he became a well-behaved cat that can only submit to his own strength. Nangongja's sword energy dragon was staring at Danzo and the group of root ninjas behind Danzo. Originally, under the deterrence of Dragon's might, the legs of many root ninjas were slightly trembling due to fear. If one could see through the white masks painted with various patterns on their faces. If you look at the white mask on their faces, you can even see that most of their faces are slightly pale, and because of the pressure their faces are unnaturally flushed. But Danzo just quietly looked at Nangongja's sword energy dragon without a trace of fear. He just had an indifferent expression, as if no matter how strong Nangongja is, no matter how powerful the sword energy dragon is, it can't affect Danzo's heart at all. Hero? Dragon? Danzo didn't care about any of this. It seems that as long as Danzo wants, the dragon can turn into an ordinary snake in an instant, and the so-called hero can turn into a corpse lying at Danzo's feet. Nangongja? Sword energy dragon? Not bad. Danzo nodded as if he was praising a junior. His tone was somewhat gratified and emotional. Actually, from the first step you took in Woodleaf, I saw the battle between you and Kakashi. A person from a poor background, relying on an ancient training method that has been eliminated by the times, can actually compete with Woodleaf's genius Hitaki Kakashi. This is really rare, so when Sandaime-sama proposed to directly upgrade you to a Chunin, I voted in favor of it. After that, the mission files and records of your battles with the enemy village were placed on my desk almost every time. At that time, I made up my mind to recruit a person like you to Roots. Nangongja didn't expect that Danzo would notice a small shrimp like him before he made a name for himself. Nangongja was really surprised, but Nangongja still shook his head and said, "That is also to thank you for your trust in me. I also understand that if I reject you this time, then our positions will instantly be on opposite sides. But I still don't want to join Roots and become a ruthless person who harvests lives. So, perhaps because of Sher's personality, I and Root Sher are destined to be on opposite sides." But when he heard Nangongja's words, Danzo couldn't help but laugh. "Ruthless? Is this your impression of Roots? Isn't it? As long as it can complete the mission, all actions are allowed. They can obviously use other methods to achieve their goals, but they still insist on killing people for fun. If this kind of organization isn't ruthless, then I really don't know how ruthless they are." Hearing Nangongja's words, Danzo's smile only increased, and he laughed even more heartily. "Only killing people? What kind of people do we deal with? I believe Nangongja, you should know. They are nothing more than corrupt officials, or rich merchants who prey on the common people, or even ninjas who betray the village or spies who want to spy on the Woodleaf. We killed the family of an official, and you said that we killed the innocent. But the money that the official embezzled, did his family not spend it all? We killed the servants and family of the rich merchants, and the family naturally enjoyed the ointment that the rich merchants took from the common people's bones. Aren't those servants also accomplices of the rich merchants who prey on the common people? There are also the ninjas who betray the village and the spies from other ninja villages. You don't need me to tell you, the main thing is that the people who dare to hide them are also spies planted by the D people. Now, do you still think that the ninjas of Roots are a group of emotionless machines? Every Root ninja is not emotionless, but they are a group of people who display their love to the extreme, and their feelings to the extreme. I believe that every ninja of Roots can proudly say that they are a hero who abandoned their personal honor and disgrace and dedicated everything to the Woodleaf. I did use a lot of harsh means to deal with them, but none of them are fools. If Roots is really a place that survives by relying on the rule of terror, why do more and more people join Roots every year and become a member of Roots? And why are they willing to risk their lives for Roots? When you came to my door and blindly emphasized your nobility and greatness, did you think about what I said?" Danzo said calmly, although his tone was still indifferent. But there was a kind of high-spirited will contained in it. Every ninja who stood behind Danzo, who originally had some fear in their hearts, extinguished the fear in their hearts at this moment. Instead, they straightened their backs and proudly held their heads high. For a moment, their momentum was incomparably high. There was indeed a reason why Root was able to grow into such a behemoth, and even be able to compete with the Dark Group and even suppress them. Whether it is Danzo or the Roots ninjas, they are full of confidence in themselves. They firmly believe that everything they do is beneficial to Konoha, and they are all things that are worthy of their hearts. Oh. Nangongja was slightly shocked after hearing Danzo's words. But Nangongja quickly recovered his consciousness and said, "I have to say, Danzo-sama's grasp of human nature and the skill of using words is extremely profound. At least, even people like me feel that what you are doing is right. But, so what if it's right and so what if it's wrong? You have neglected an important thing, and that is, I don't care whether the Woodleaf becomes stronger or more rotten. Woodleaf has never been my home, I just regard it as a place for me to stay. You kidnapped Mashiro and Little Linger, and that is enough for me to stand on the opposite side of you." Chapter 135. Nangongja's words caught Danzo off guard. Using Konoha as a temporary place to stay? Danzo never thought that Nangongja's concept of Woodleaf would be so simple and crude. In Danzo's view, Woodleaf is simply the best place to settle down in the war-torn world. And everyone who joins Woodleaf will unknowingly fall in love with Woodleaf, and regard themselves as a member of Woodleaf. Danzo never thought that there would be a person who would regard Woodleaf as an insignificant place to stay. Sure enough. I said that with Yuan Fei's ability to see through people, how could he not notice your extraordinariness? Instead, he just let you be and only let you perform tasks when you are needed. So that's how it is, so that's how it is. Danzo was so angry that he laughed and pointed at Nangongja with one hand, as if he was laughing at himself for doing all these things to Nangongja. Everything in my plan is based on the fact that you will use Konoha as a place for yourself to stay. But you gave me a different answer to all my plans. Who would have thought of it? The infamous Yama of Woodleaf didn't put Woodleaf in his heart at all. Interesting. I only caught that woman named Mishiro. I didn't care about that Nangong Ling. He just did something secretly and urgently transferred her out of Konoha's territory. You can take this woman called Mishiro back. Although the plan failed, you won't join my faction, nor will you join the Hokage clan's faction. This result is enough. With that, Danzo waved his hand, indicating his men to bring out the captured Mishiro. Danzo-sama. A root ninja standing next to Danzo seemed to want to say something, but Danzo stared at him. The root ninja could only stare at Nangongja fiercely to express his dissatisfaction. However, he still turned around and led his subordinates to bring Mishiro out of the base that had already been exposed. After a while, Mishiro was escorted by several root ninjas to Danzo's side. There were some tears on Mishiro's clothes and her skin was torn open. After seeing Nangongja, Mishiro anxiously said to Nangongja, "Miyagi, go quickly. These people want to use me to threaten you. Don't care about me. Go find Rower, Mei and Little Linger. Take them and leave quickly. Don't come back." Danzo glanced at Mishiro and seemed to admire Mishiro's character. There was a slight smile on the corner of his mouth. "You are useless to me. I will release you now." Although Root is not afraid of provoking Nangongja, it is indeed not a good choice to be enemies with Nangongja. Danzo waved his hand, and the root ninjas who were holding Mishiro let go of Mishiro. They let Mishiro walk to Nangongja to prove that Root is not hostile to Nangongja. Mishiro was already injured, so the actions of the root ninjas weren't that gentle either. So when Mishiro was released, he staggered and almost fell to the ground. But Mishiro didn't care that his clothes were stained with mud, and his face was dirty with mud. Just like that, he stumbled toward Nangongja. When Nangongja was sure that there was no movement from Root, he urged the Sword Energy Dragon to circle up and wrap Mishiro in it. This was to prevent the root ninjas from coming up with any tricks. Mishiro? Nangongja's figure came out of the Sword Energy Dragon's reverse scale and came to Mishiro's side. He called Mishiro's name and gently hugged Mishiro, who was covered in wounds. She gently patted Mishiro's head with one hand and said softly, "Don't worry, I will never let Root threaten you again. Since I promised you back then, I will protect you well and treat you as my real family. I will do my best to protect you and not let you suffer the slightest grievance." After saying that, Nangongja even intentionally or unintentionally glanced at Danzo, who was standing in front of the root ninjas. "Nangongja, remember our agreement. From today onwards, you will not stand on my side or Yuan Fei's side." Danzo didn't pay attention to Nangongja's eyes, but he emphasized the deal between them. "Of course, although I don't like your way of doing things. But I have always been a man of my word. Since I promised you, I will not go back on my word," Nangongja said, but Danzo frowned with some dissatisfaction. "I never believe a person's promise. Since there is an agreement, I naturally have to leave something as proof." Nangongja naturally heard about Danzo's suspicion. So Nangongja was not surprised that Danzo would make such a proposal. "Proof? You want?" Before Nangongja could finish his words, Nangongja's abdomen was pierced by a kunai. Even Li Yang's black armor couldn't stop this kunai. Chakra formed a thin layer of sharp edge on the edge of the kunai. This kunai was made of rare chakra metal. It was extremely sharp. "The proof I want is very simple. Since you can't join either Root or Hokage's faction, isn't the best proof to hand over your life? Only in this way, you won't have the slightest chance to go back on your word," Danzo said. Nangongja was familiar with Root. They were ruthless and never believed anyone except for their own people and the dead. It's just that Nangongja couldn't accept that the one who showed him a kunai was the girl in his arms, Mishiro. Mishiro, who was buried in Nangongja's arms, raised her head. Her face was full of tears. She should be extremely angry with Mishiro. However, Nangongja maintained his usual gentle smile as he looked at the tearful young lady. "Why are you crying?" "It's me who was stabbed." Hearing Nangongja's words, Mishiro cried even harder. "Are you a fool? I'm a member of Root. There was no such thing as Mishiro from the beginning. There was only a root ninja named Sky. From the very beginning, I was sent to spy on you. If the situation went wrong, I would be the one who killed you. Why are you still smiling at me? Why do you still believe in me? You already knew." Nangongja's hand was still on Mishiro's head, gently stroking it. "I do know that you are related to Root. But you are wrong about one thing. The girl named Mishiro was never an illusory existence. From the beginning, you knew almost nothing about life. Sometimes you were a fool, but now you are the one who took care of my daily life. It's you who changed unknowingly, making me treat you as a real family member. I said, I won't let you be threatened by Root again. What does this have to do with whether you are a member of Root or not? Chapter 136. Are you an idiot? I've already betrayed you like this. Mashiro looked at Nangongja and couldn't help but ask. In Mashiro's eyes, Nangongja had never done anything impulsive in front of her. However, Mashiro knew very well that Nangongja would show his cruel and cold-blooded side when he was really angry. Mashiro learned this from observing Nangongja's daily state and some information from Root. Otherwise, how did Nangongja get his title of King of Hell? However, if Nangongja really did it, it would be fine. That's fine, it won't make Masabai feel any more guilty. You're talking about this thing? Nangongja grabbed Mashiro's kunai and slowly pulled it out of his abdomen. Although Mashiro was holding the kunai in her hand, Mashiro didn't have any strength left. She could only watch as Nangongja slowly pulled the kunai out. Blood splattered everywhere as the kunai was pulled out. You don't have any more now, right? Nangongja looked at Mashiro and revealed an extremely gentle smile. It was as if the person who was bleeding was someone who had nothing to do with him. Mashiro looked at Nangongja and felt that her throat was stuck. She clearly wanted to say something, but she couldn't make a sound. She clearly wanted to break free from Nangongja's embrace and push him far away, but she didn't have any strength left. She could only nestle in Nangongja's embrace. Indecisive and soft-hearted. Originally, I had some expectations for you and thought that you were a ruthless character like me. But in the end, you're only at this level? Danzo looked at Nangongja and Mashiro, who were cuddling with each other. His eyes were filled with disappointment. He felt that his judgment of Nangongja might have been wrong. She was a person who cared about love and could forgive others with a smile even if she was stabbed in the back. How could he be a ruthless character? It was really disappointing. Indeed, sometimes I don't act like a qualified ninja. Many times after I kill someone, I feel a strong sense of guilt shrouding my heart. For some unknown people, I will accept them with the greatest kindness. Perhaps in your eyes, Danzo-sama's eyes, these things are simply inconceivable. But I have never regretted it. Because although I'm a ninja, I've never thought that I'm a qualified ninja. Resentment, love, hatred, kindness and malice. As a ninja, you have to use the greatest malice to guess the opponent's mind. But how many people have broken through the boundary of good and evil, or even directly fallen to the side of darkness? Nangongja's words were actually a kind of interrogation for himself. Was he good or evil, cruel or merciful? When Nangongja spoke these words, the answers to all these questions in Nangongja's heart began to become clear. I've thought for a long time, and I realized that I don't know whether I'm good or evil. Because I've actually stepped into both, but now I'm not willing to agree with either. Good and evil is the biggest lie of human nature. It's an illusory rule made up by groups of people. They use words and habits to fabricate such an invisible shackle to bind all life. Everyone is like this, whether it's the evil person who brings disaster to the world or the kind person who saves the world. In fact, they all follow this rule intentionally or unintentionally, so that they unconsciously become more like the good person or the evil person in the world's perception. In this way, for a long time in the cage, unable to transcend, unable to be free. How can such a person achieve transcendence and freedom? Nangongja's words were rebellious, and it made people at a loss. If they really had to use a word to describe it, it might be only this word: madman. No one knew who it was that let out such a slight exclamation. But it made everyone, including Danzo, slightly agree in their hearts. Madman? That's good. Banishment. Senpai once told me a sentence from a wise man. Others laugh at me for being too crazy, I laugh at others for not being able to see through it. I didn't understand at that time. But now I'm slightly touched. It doesn't matter if you're crazy or sober. As long as a person can face himself seriously and recognize himself. Even if he's a madman, he's still happy and happy. On the contrary, he's submissive in the consciousness of others. Even if he's really praised by everyone, his mind will not be clear in the end. Of course, Danzo didn't know who the banishment senpai Nangongja was talking about was. Such a hero had long been submerged in the dust of history, intentionally or unintentionally. But Nangongja's words still fiercely knocked on Danzo's heart, and he couldn't help but secretly ask himself in his heart. Was he indulging in unwillingness and humiliation, and gradually lost himself? But before Danzo had time to think deeply, he was already attracted by Nangongja's state. After Nangongja finished speaking, his body's aura began to become extremely unstable. It was sometimes strong and sometimes weak, and it was impossible to understand. Danzo naturally saw Nangong's abnormality, because Danzo also went through this stage. This was a sign that a person's mental and physical state had reached saturation and began to blend with each other, allowing a person's strength to reach the strongest state. Everyone's way of breaking through to the Kage level was not fixed. Not to mention others, Danzo reached the Kage level because of the intense humiliation and unwillingness in his heart when he didn't get the position of Hokage. As for Nangongja, he was even more surprising. He actually began to analyze his own mind, and began to break through to the Kage level under the condition of understanding his heart. If it was in a normal state, a slight noise may be able to interrupt the process of a person's promotion. This process was so fragile. But at this moment, Nangongja's body was surrounded by a powerful sword chi dragon, unconsciously forming a barrier that separated him from the outside world. And the only person who could possibly interrupt Nangongja's promotion was Mishiro, who was also surrounded by the sword chi dragon. But looking at Mishiro's current state, Danzo was sure that even if he gave any order that could endanger Nangongja, Mishiro would definitely ignore it without hesitation. This is why I hate love so much. It's really a waste of time. Danzo couldn't help but secretly curse, but other than that he could only watch Nangongja's promotion process without being able to stop it. Chapter 137. The sword is a vicious weapon since the ancient times. Although some people say that it is the king of all weapons, it cannot change its nature. It has become a tool to reap lives. Therefore, if a person uses the sword with good intentions, then the sword can save people and support the world. If a person uses the sword with evil intentions, then the sword can slaughter thousands of people. The sword will always be a tool. The only one who can decide the fate of the sword is the person holding it. Some people say that I am a demon who kills people like scything flax. Some people say that I am a cruel and violent madman. However, I am me. That person holds a sword and drinks wine. Banishment of those who kill each other and those who save those who want to save. I will always be a banishment. Young man, there will be a day when you see yourself clearly. When that time comes, don't forget. You are just a person, an ordinary person who can still cry and laugh. Just do as you wish. Nangongja didn't know what kind of state he was in. He only felt that his whole body was wrapped in a kind of gentle power. Even his abdomen that was stabbed by Mishiro didn't feel any pain now. Mishiro indeed didn't have the intention to kill Nangongja. Perhaps it was subconsciously that Mishiro's kunai avoided Nangongja's vital points. Although he lost a lot of blood, it didn't affect Nangongja much. Looking at the lifelike but somewhat illusory figure of the banishment standing in front of him, Nangongja knew that this was the moment when he was about to leave the illusion created by the banishment. The banishment was the last thing he entrusted to him. He didn't know if the banishment had expected that with Nangongja's character, he would inevitably face this kind of interrogation. It was an inconspicuous sentence back then, but now it sounded like it was specially said to Nangongja at this moment. I didn't expect that even after Senior disappeared from the world for 3 years, I would still listen to Senior's teachings. Nangongja smiled faintly. Although there was a little complaint in his tone, it was more of a deep nostalgia. Although she hadn't spent much time with banishment, her charisma had left a deep impression on her. He had learned about Nangongja's attitude and way of doing things. He looked at the person standing in front of him who had finished speaking. With a pair of sharp sword-like eyes, he looked straight at her smiling face. Nangongja also smiled. Whether it was the outline of his mouth or the posture, it was very similar to banishment. Senior, you once told me that in ancient times, there was a kind of person who didn't fear life or death, who didn't fear hardships. They used their own martial arts to carry out their own hearts. They were respectfully called Rinxia by people. They did whatever they wanted, but they were chivalrous in their hearts. I think, perhaps in the depths of my heart, I also yearn to become such a person. I am willing to hold the 5 feet of heavenly tribulation in my hands and follow my heart. Be a true Rinxia, that I envy. Nangongja seemed to be talking to himself, but also seemed to be talking to banishment standing in front of him. Although his words weren't very impassioned, each word was powerful. It wasn't difficult to see that Nangongja valued these words. Banishment, who was standing opposite Nangongja, suddenly became clear. The smile on his face became wider, and he even nodded slightly at Nangongja. It didn't seem like a remnant image in his memory at all. Instead, it seemed like a real senior banishment was standing opposite him. Nangongja wanted to say something, but Banishment's body had already turned into spots of light and dissipated. Nangong's thoughts were no longer in the warm space. Wisps of cold wind blew on his face. Nangongja has returned to reality. Mashiro was still nestled in Nangongja's arms, while Danzo looked at Nangongja with a complicated expression. As for the root ninjas behind Danzo? Don't mention it. Mashiro, let's go home. Nangongja put his mouth close to Mashiro's ear and said softly. After saying that, Nangongja raised his head and looked at Danzo. The corner of his mouth actually raised a little bit with a mocking smile. Not good, Nangongja is going to go all out. This was Danzo's first thought. But anyone who breaks through the Kage level will have a strange state for a short period of time after breaking through. It's like finding a way to vent after suddenly having excess power. At this moment, isn't Nangongja a person who just broke through the Kage level and just happened to have a chance to vent? Nangongja waved his hand, and the Dragon Ball sword that originally turned into a sword energy dragon dissipated the sword energy around the sword. It returned to its original appearance. His eyes never left the Heavenly Calamity Sword's body, as if he was preparing something. His hand that was holding the Heavenly Tribulation Sword suddenly trembled. The Dragon Ball sword emitted a kind of fluctuation. In an instant, it affected the entire sword energy dragon. The sword energy dragon expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the aura also changed from the originally stable to violent. Danzo hurriedly increased the speed of his hand seals, but the seals were not finished yet. The sword chi of the long dragon of sword chi suddenly erupted. The powerful light, the huge energy wave, and the sword energy that was even smaller than a thin thread that could penetrate through every opening suddenly exploded. There was no loud bang, and the sword energy dragon's explosion swept across the entire land silently. There was a huge cloud of dust in the air, and a gigantic whirlpool formed in the air, absorbing all of the dust that covered everyone's vision. A gigantic silhouette appeared. It was a strange creature with a long elephant trunk that was crouching on the ground at the moment. Below the abdomen of this giant creature, a group of people slowly appeared. At the same time, Danzo summoned his psychic beast, the Nightmare Taper, the moment the sword aura dragon burst out. He looked at the deep and shallow wounds on the Nightmare Taper's body that had a shocking defense. Danzo's heart was also filled with fear. If he had not summoned his spiritual beast in time, the base might have suffered a serious loss this time. A large number of members would lose their combat ability, and the precious information in the base would be destroyed. Those were the consequences that Danzo could not bear. Nangongja. I can't believe it's a disaster because of my carelessness. However, misfortune may be a blessing in disguise. My plan to exterminate the Uchiha tribe can't handle a variable like Nangongja in the Woodleaf. Although there are losses in this operation, we've forced Nangongja out of the Woodleaf's range. It's just nice to compensate for the losses with the Sharingan. Danzo waved and turned around, walking to the only part of the base that was not destroyed under the Nightmare Taper's protection. Chapter 138. When Nangongja reappeared, he was already in the alternate dimension of the Lion tribe. Brother, are you hurt? Nangongro was anxiously waiting at the teleportation point of the Lion tribe. Not much time had passed since Nangongja sent his sister to the alternate dimension of the Lion tribe to Nangongja rescuing Mashiro. Therefore, Nangongro had been waiting near the teleportation point, hoping to see her brother as soon as possible to confirm if Nangongja was hurt. It's nothing, just some superficial wounds. It doesn't affect anything. I already know that Little Linger wasn't captured. I'll go find Little Linger now and bring her to the alternate dimension of the Lion tribe. Nangongja's complexion was normal. Although his body was slightly tired, there were no obvious signs of abnormalities. Nangongro also knew that her brother's body was fine. Sister Mashiro, are you okay too? Nangongro looked at Mashiro, who was nestled in Nangongja's arms, and asked. There were many wounds on Mashiro's body, some shallow and some deep. Perhaps the people from Root wanted to confuse Nangongja, but they left many wounds on Mashiro's body. Moreover, they didn't hold back at all. Every wound was left on Mashiro's body. At this moment, Mashiro was still a little weak and her face was sickly pale. He opened his pale mouth as if he wanted to say something. However, after opening it a few times, she closed her mouth weakly. Nangongja could also see that Mashiro might be feeling guilty for stabbing herself, so he helped Mashiro cover up. Alright, Little Linger is still outside and we can't be completely sure of her safety. Mashiro has never cultivated before and her body is also weak. Now that I think about it, we can't talk properly. Let her have a good rest. Nangong's words weren't completely flawless. However, Nangong-ro also knew that little Linger was in a dangerous state. It wasn't the time to mind Mishiro's problem. Although Nangong knew some emergency bandages, he didn't have time to treat Mishiro. Although her injuries hadn't reached a critical state, she still needed to be treated urgently. Alright, let's not talk anymore. I have to find little Linger as soon as possible. I'll leave Mishiro to you. Nangong knew that he couldn't lie in front of his sister. The two of them were too familiar with each other. If Nangong had any unnatural behavior, Nangong-ro wouldn't be able to hide it. Nangong quickly placed True White in front of Nangong-ro and glanced at Arthur, who was beside him, and said, "Don't worry. Little Arthur, please take care of Sister Mishiro and Sister Ruru." Little Arthur. "Roar, don't worry, leave it to me. I, the Lionheart King, am super powerful." Nangong stepped forward, patted little Arthur's head, and stepped into the teleportation circle. Nangong-ro and Mishiro looked at Nangong's back in a daze. Both of them had their own thoughts, but they didn't ask each other about it. Nangong-ro started to treat Mishiro's injuries. In the spatial rift, Nangong and Liang were talking. "You hid the matter about Mishiro just like that? Can you really do it?" With Nangong-ro's intelligence, it's impossible that she didn't see through it. Nangong nodded, indicating that he knew how powerful his sister was. Indeed, Ruru definitely knew about it last night. But I still can't tell her about it. Because I understand my sister just like how she understands me. Nangong paused for a moment before continuing. Although it seems like Ruru has a good relationship with Mishiro and little Linger. But that was a situation that could only be maintained when there was no conflict between them. Ruru has been a very opinionated person since she was young. Many times, even if I explained the cause and effect to her, she would still be stubborn. If Ruru really knew that Mishiro was a spy from Root, and even stabbed me, she wouldn't be able to do it. I really don't want to imagine what Ruru would do. Moreover, I teleported her to the Lion Tribe's alternate dimension. She must be regretting that she couldn't help me. Once she knew about Jinbai's situation, she would be completely enraged. She might even do something bad. I have to hide it from her, at least for now. When I have the chance, I'll explain it to her. Nangong spoke sincerely. Nangong naturally understood Nangong-ro. Therefore Liang couldn't say anything else. But she still reminded Nangong, "Since you've decided to hide it from her, then I won't say anything else. Then I won't say anything more. But you must pay attention to it. Even if you want Nangong-ro to know something about Mishiro, it must come from your mouth. Otherwise, if an enemy adds oil to the fire, it will be a huge problem to drive a wedge between your family members." Liang could be said to be a veteran who had been in the world for a long time. There were some things that Nangong couldn't think of or didn't want to think of. Liang felt that it was his responsibility to remind Nangong. Good medicine is bitter, but honest advice is unpleasant. There were some things that had to be said. I understand. Nangong and Liang's lives were connected, so there were fewer taboos between them. The best proof was that Nangong could still listen to Liang seriously even though he was talking about such a sensitive topic. Whether it was Liang's attitude or her experience, it was an important supplement for Nangong. When the two of them are together, they are the real Konohazayama known by the ninja world. Before Mishiro was captured and brought to Root's base, such a place naturally has a way to block the transmission of space coordinates. I thought that little Linger and Mishiro were together, so I didn't try to get close to the coordinates through the transmission circle. But now that little Linger isn't in Root's base, and I have confirmed that little Linger's coordinates can still be detected, then we can directly go to little Linger's side and bring little Linger to the Lion Clan space as soon as possible. Although little Linger has only been a ninja for a short period of time, now I have to let her get out of the farce of acting as a ninja. Nangong felt little Linger's aura, then slowly and quickly moved to the place where little Linger was. Chapter 139. Ayaya, we finally have a mission that doesn't involve hoeing fields or searching for lost pets. Little Linger was very excited as she walked on the road. In the morning, little Linger just met up with her instructor. The instructor brought little Linger a piece of good news. Their class is finally going to accept a mission outside the village. But he didn't say what the mission was, he just said that because the mission was a bit urgent, they had to leave immediately and there was no time to inform their family. Although little Linger doesn't understand why they can't inform their family, the joy of leaving the village has already rushed to little Linger's head. Moreover, going with little Linger is also the Uchiha family's Uchiha Yuri Koyuri. The two of them graduated from the same class, so they were assigned to the same ninja team. The other member of their team is actually in the same class as Little Linger and Mashiro, but his performance has always been mediocre, and he doesn't have a sense of presence. It seems like his name is something Irika? But Jitian seems to have a fever. This mission can only be carried out by their instructor Little Linger and Uchiha Yuri Koyuri. Looking at Little Linger chattering in front of him, Yuri Koyuri seemed to feel that it was very noisy, so he slightly frowned and said, "Nangong Ling, don't be like this, okay? You don't only represent yourself, but also the reputation of Nangong Sensei. Your every move may change people's perception of Nangong Sensei. If you always act like this, it will make Nangong Sensei very embarrassed." In the beginning, Yuri Koyuri didn't like Nangongja. But since Yuri Koyuri was selected by Nangongja as his class representative, the intersection between the two has become more and more frequent. Yuri Koyuri's impression of Nangongja has also begun to change little by little. In Little Linger's words, he has become Nangongja's crazy fan. I like to be crazy. No matter what I do, brother Nangong is still my brother. It has nothing to do with you, you can slowly envy him. That's right, Little Linger began to ridicule him. You are simply unreasonable. I'm unreasonable. Well, the two of them stared at each other like that. Little sparks that could be seen with the naked eye burst out between the two of them. However, an ordinary-looking pendant hanging on Linger's chest emitted a burst of green light. Your chest is glowing? Yuri Koyuri was standing opposite Little Linger, so he naturally saw the pendant on Little Linger's chest clearly. Glowing? What glowing? I think you are just envious that Brother Nangong gave it to me. Why is the pendant that Brother Nangong gave me glowing? Suddenly, the pendant slowly floated up from Little Linger's chest. The light began to become brighter and brighter. Suddenly, the pendant emitted a strong green light. It made people unable to see what was in front of them. After the strong light dissipated, their vision gradually recovered. A figure wearing black armor stood near the two of them. Brother Nangong. Nangong, Sensei? Little Linger and Yuri Koyuri simultaneously discovered that the person wearing black armor standing on the ground was Nangongja, whom they were just talking about. The two girls' cheeks became slightly pink for a moment. However, Nangongja didn't care about the performance of the two little girls. Instead, he stared at the Jonin who was walking behind the two little girls. Nangongja's tone was slightly gloomy, even the two girls could feel the anger in his voice. Nangong Jonin. Would Leaf Yama? When the instructor saw Nangongja, he didn't expect that Nangongja would appear here. In fact, this instructor was indeed a ninja from Root, but due to various coincidences, he became a Jonin who led a few genin. Although no one told him directly, the instructor knew that he was a backup plan placed by Root beside Nangong Ling. If the mission failed, then Nangong Ling would become an excellent target for coercion. Root? It was still the same words and the same tone. But Nangongja's words made people feel even more gloomy. I am Nangong Ling's instructor Jonin, why must I cooperate with Root? The instructor knew that his identity couldn't be exposed like this. Unless Nangongja directly went to Root's personnel department to check the information. Otherwise, it was impossible to find out the slightest bit of information about his identity. So when he spoke, he was actually a little bit fearless. Root. Although Nangongja said the same words at this moment, his tone was very firm. Obviously, he had made a conclusion in his heart. Wait, I am? The instructor naturally knew that Nangongja wanted to kill him. No matter what kind of person he was, it was impossible for him to be so calm when facing the net. The fear in his heart urged him to explain himself. But Nangongja's sword flashed, and the instructor's head flew into the sky just like that. Under the effect of the heart, a column of blood gushed up to the sky. Whether it was Little Linger or Yuri Koyuri, they had never seen such a bloody scene before. For a moment, their stomachs were overturned, and it was as if they were going to vomit. Brother Nangong? After all, Little Linger was closer to Nangongja. Although she didn't understand why Nangongja wanted to kill this instructor Jonin who treated her well, she still didn't understand. But she still called out Nangongja's name with the fear and disgust in her heart. Although Nangongja had just killed someone, he wasn't controlled by the emotions of killing someone. Instead, he turned around and told Little Linger the whole story. Of course, Nangongja still hid the fact that Mashiro was a fan. So, that organization called Root wanted to kidnap Mashiro-san and Roar-san to threaten Brother to work for them. But Brother saw through it and saved Mashiro-san and Roar-san to the Lion Clan's alternate dimension. Now, Little Linger's instructor Jonin is actually a backup plan left by Root to threaten brother? Little Linger's tone was a little surprised and uneasy. Little Linger, who was inexperienced in the world, had never seen such a sinister person. For a moment she was speechless. On the other hand, Yuri Koyuri, who came from a big family, seemed to have endured the fear and disgust of the bloody scene and seemed to be thinking about something. Chapter 140. Nangong Sensei. Root will never recruit a famous ninja for no reason. Because, this is not Root's style at all. Yuri Koyuri said to Nangongja. Although Yuri Koyuri usually jested with Little Linger and didn't seem to be scheming. But that's just because Yuri Koyuri didn't want to use too much scheming on a pure person like Little Linger. How can a person who was trained by a big clan like the Uchiha be an ignorant girl? As one of the key clansmen of the Uchiha clan, some records about the Woodleaf forces must be studied. As the root of Konoha's rapid rise, Konoha was feared by many, and Konoha has naturally seen his intelligence. As an organization that specializes in assassination, every ninja recruited must have some kind of connection with Root. If they didn't have a relationship with Root, then they were trained by Root. Although Nangongja was strong, he was still a stranger to Root. Now that they wanted to recruit someone they weren't familiar with, the most likely reason was that Root was going to organize a big operation. Their own strength was still a bit lacking, so they used this method to increase their strength. Then Lily continued, "That's right. There are only a few people who can make Root pay so much attention to them. Outer Village ninjas suffered a lot during the Third Shinobi World War, so they naturally won't do stupid things at this juncture, so they can be ruled out. Although the Woodleaf's alliance is already a force that can't be ignored, after all, each of the small clans had many or small conflicts and frictions during the Warring States period. They were wary of each other, and there was no one who was strong enough to lead them. So in fact, it's more than enough to defend but not enough to attack. Such a force is not worth Root's attention." Although the Hokage clan has always been in conflict with Root, they still restrained each other. After the fourth Hokage left the village to investigate the mysterious organization that caused the Nine Tails Rebellion, the Hokage clan's strength has also been greatly weakened. As long as the two sides don't have a fundamental conflict, they won't fight openly. The Hyuga clan's eldest daughter was kidnapped by Kumo Shinobu not long ago. Although there were some complaints because of the Woodleaf, most of the Hyuga leaders didn't mind using a branch family member to end this trouble. Therefore there is no conflict with Root, which represents Konoha's official power. Moreover, the poor Cataract clan doesn't have the courage to compete with an organization like Root. So, the only force that can make Root make such a big move is actually very obvious. It's the Uchiha clan. Yuri Koyuri's analysis was very reasonable, and his logic was very careful. Automatically blocking some of the Daily Hyuga's remarks was very valuable. But Nangongja always felt that Yuri Koyuri was a little too calm at this moment. It was obviously the clan that he grew up in. Yuri Koyuri could be so calm at this moment, it could even be said that he was cold-blooded. Even if he finally concluded that his clan was the target of Root's powerful force, he was still too calm and didn't have any anger or grievance. "You're right, Root's target is actually the Uchiha clan." Nangongja confirmed Yuri Koyuri's thoughts and then said, "Although I don't know why Root wants to fight with the Uchiha clan, I'm sure that the Uchiha clan is indeed facing a big trouble this time. With Danzo's character, since he's going to make a move, then naturally he's well prepared. Even if he wants to recruit me, it's just a plan to add flowers to the brocade. If it succeeds, it'll be killing two birds with one stone. Not only will it increase their combat power, but it'll also increase their chances of attacking the Uchiha clan. Even if it doesn't succeed, they'll have eliminated an uncertain factor that could disrupt the situation. Although it's a small loss, it'll undoubtedly increase the chances of the plan succeeding." Yuri Koyuri nodded, as if he also felt that Nangongja's analysis was reasonable. But Nangongja couldn't suppress his curiosity, and asked Yuri Koyuri, "The place you grew up in is facing such a huge threat at this moment. I really don't understand why you're so calm at this moment." "It's actually very simple." Yuri Koyuri didn't want to hide anything from Nangongja, and just said with a calm face, "The Uchiha clan is the same as all the other major forces, it's divided into factions. I represent some of the moderate factions, but the current head of the Uchiha clan is a standard radical faction. After he became the head of the clan because of his background, he greatly suppressed the moderate factions. In this generation, the moderate faction only has the strength to support me, a talented clansman. Although I don't know what this Uchiha Fugaku is planning, but it's nothing more than a serious threat to the interests of Root. so a battle between the two is inevitable. Although I don't want to admit it, the 3 generations Hokage is still reasonable. If Danzo really goes too far, the 3 generations will also come out to stop him. The worst outcome is that the radical faction of the Uchiha clan will be eliminated, and the power of the Uchiha clan will be greatly weakened. For a long time, the Uchiha clan will become a sharp blade that listens to Woodleaf's orders. There's nothing unacceptable about this, and there's always a price to pay for a political defeat. In fact, Yuri Koyuri didn't say that the moderate faction of the Uchiha clan was actually secretly related to the Hokage. If there's a disaster, the Hokage will naturally protect them. Such a secret transaction naturally has to be kept confidential. So Little Linger didn't say anything to Nangongja. Although I don't know why you are so confident in the 3 generations Hokage, but since you didn't say anything, I don't want to interrupt the various details of the Uchiha clan and the Hokage faction. I just want to protect my family and I don't want to be involved in this kind of troublesome thing. Nangongja said, and then his tone changed, but since Danzo provoked me, I naturally can't let him get what he wants. It's also possible to create some trouble for him at the right time. Chapter 141. Nangong. Brother. What are you guys talking about? Little Linger, why can't I understand? Nangongja and Yuri Koyuri began brainstorming each other, but Little Linger, who was standing on the side, suffered. What's going on today? Little Linger finally received a mission to go out of the village, and she thought that she would have a good trip. But she just quarreled with Yuri Koyuri for a while and ridiculed each other a few times. Then Nangongja suddenly appeared and killed the Jonin under his guidance. After that, Nangongja began to explain the ins and outs to Little Linger. After listening to her brother Nangong's words, her teammates Yuri Koyuri and brother Nangong began to chatter about a lot of things that Little Linger didn't understand. What small family alliance, what cataract family, what rude Uchiha. Little Linger's head was a little dizzy from hearing this. Her brain couldn't wrap itself around it, so Little Linger had to call her brother Nangong. Looking at Little Linger's face that was about to turn into a mosquito coil, Nangongja suddenly realized that he seemed to be too protective of Little Linger. He clearly persuaded Yabuki to let Sakura go to the ninja school to learn self-defense methods, but now it's his turn to be overprotective of Little Linger. Sure enough, people are just people who know it's easy to do it. Little Linger's innocence and kindness are what Nangongja and many people close to Nangongja lack. Only when he sees the pure and kind Little Linger, can Nangongja be reminded of his own heart. This is the charm of Little Linger and the most precious part. Nangongja smiled gently and put his hand on Little Linger's head. He gently caressed her and Xiaoling Air was just like a kitten, smiling leisurely. It's okay, it's just a small trouble. I'll solve it soon, but Little Linger, you'll have to stay with Mishiro-san and Ruru-san in the Lion Clan space for a while. Hearing Nangongja's words, Little Linger's smile suddenly disappeared, and her small mouth flattened as if she was very unwilling. Little Linger, don't, I've just become a ninja. I just want to carry out a few super missions and surprise my brothers and sisters. But why do I have to go so far so soon? Little Linger also has a childish temper, and her expression can be said to change at will. But Nangongja has long been used to Little Linger's various expressions. After all, they have lived together for a long time. The degree of understanding between them is extremely high. But Big Brother still has very important things to do. Mishiro-san and Ruru-san are both in the Lion Clan space. Big Brother really doesn't have the spare energy to take care of them, so I want to ask Little Linger to help Big Brother. Now that Little Linger is unhappy and doesn't want to help Big Brother, what should I do? The moment Nangongja's words left his mouth, it could be considered to have intimidated Little Linger. Her small mouth was no longer pouting. Instead, her pair of small eyes were rolling around. It was obvious that she was considering Nangongja's words. Good. This is the time to pursue the victory. And there's a talking kitten in the Lion Clan space, Little Linger, don't you want to see it? This sentence can be said to be the last straw that broke the camel's back. Little Linger, who was still in a dilemma, instantly became excited and shouted, I want to go. I want to go. Little Linger wants to help Big Brother take care of the 2 sisters and the talking kitten. Phew. Nangongja let out a heavy breath. It can be said that Little Linger was tricked. So he turned his head to look at Yuri Koyuri standing next to him. Although Yuri Koyuri looks very mature, he is still an 11 or 12-year-old child after all. Things like talking kittens and alternate dimensions were still very fascinating. A pair of bright eyes looked at Nangongja. Nangongja naturally knows that Yuri Koyuri also wants to go to the Lion Clan space. This is not a troublesome matter. Yuri Koyuri thought too much of the kindness of the 3 generations and Danzo's thinking. Nangongja actually has contact with both of them. Neither of them is easy to deal with. Gentle? Kind? Cruel? Sinister? Both of them are gathered together. After all, Yuri Koyuri is his student. The relationship between the two was quite close, so Nangongja took the opportunity to say, Yuri Koyuri, you also go to the Lion Clan space with Little Linger, right? But, although Yuri Koyuri's analysis has reached the point of indifference, when Nangongja really wants Yuri Koyuri to get out of this matter, Yuri Koyuri's heart inevitably hesitated. Don't worry, Master's matter will be solved by Master. You are just a child. No matter how much you want to do something, you are still lacking in both strength and intellect. Whether it's strength or scheming, you're still lacking. I'm not willing to let you and Linger face such a thing at such a young age. Go to the Lion Clan space with Little Linger to lie low for a while. When the dust settles, I will bring you back. Nangongja spoke with sincerity. He did not hide his intention to protect her at all. Yuri Koyuri also knows that it is best for him and Little Linger to follow Nangongja to the Lion Clan space to lie low for a while. So he nodded and agreed to Nangongja's proposal. So Nangongja inserted the Heaven's Disaster Sword into the ground, grabbed the 2 little girls' hands, and took them through the space-time gap to the Lion Clan space. After all, the environment of the Lion Clan space is somewhat different from the ninja world. The 2 little girls were also attracted by the environment of the Lion Clan space. Nangongja? You're back so soon? Little Lion Arthur felt the fluctuation of space and knew that Nangongja had returned, so he hurriedly ran to greet Nangongja. Is Mishiro okay? Nangongja did not forget to ask about Mishiro's situation. After all, Mishiro suffered the most serious injury among them. It doesn't matter anymore. Ruru-san has already bandaged Mishiro-san's wound. It's just that Mishiro-san seems to be too tired and has already fallen asleep. Ruru-san is still watching Mishiro-san's bed just in case. Little Arthur's mouth was quite smooth and he explained the matter in a few words. Little Linger and Yuri Koyuri also broke free from the magnificent scenery of the Lion Clan space. Seeing little Arthur, who was bragging to Nangongja about how much effort he put in when bandaging the wound, the 2 little girls exclaimed and rushed to little Arthur. Wow, there really is a talking kitten. Its fur is so smooth. Little Arthur was dumbfounded, but when he regained his senses he shouted loudly, Don't worry. This Lionheart King is a lion. And Nangongja, come and save me. Nangongja had long disappeared. It was better to die than to die. Little Arthur, I wish you a safe life under the ravages of the little girls. Chapter 142. Woodleaf Village, Changi Alley. This is an alley that is not often mentioned by people, but it is a long alley in Woodleaf Village that is hard to ignore. This is the place where some of the messengers from big forces and big merchants live in Woodleaf Village. Because these people are not short of money, this is almost the most entertaining street in Woodleaf Village. Countless merchants open their shops here side by side. One by one, the basic legal industries of Woodleaf Village were quietly distributed here. In an ordinary courtyard in Changi Alley, Nangongja was standing inside at the moment, holding a small and exquisite wine glass. Nangongja obviously changed his appearance. The originally dark long hair like a waterfall has now turned into a black and white bun on his head. His eyebrows were also trimmed. The sharp eyebrows were trimmed slightly, and with some disguise methods, his face became a little abnormal white. Impressively, he has turned into a sick and weak noble son. Some people may ask, obviously ninjas have a very convenient transformation technique. Directly from the body to the hair and the clothes on the body can be changed. Why did Nangongja use such a primitive method to cover his face? It is very simple, because Nangongja doesn't know how to do it. As a person who cultivates internal force, Nangongja really doesn't know how to use chakra to change his appearance. He can only rely on some of the disguise techniques he learned when performing tasks in various parts of the ninja world to change his appearance. However, this is not without benefits because the essence of the transformation technique is actually a kind of genjutsu. Relying on the chakra covering the whole body, setting up a layer of genjutsu to cover the body, some powerful and experienced ninjas can quickly see through some of the less detailed transformation jutsu and perceive the energy fluctuations of the ninjutsu. Nangongja's genjutsu is the least dangerous way to change his appearance. In the past few days, Nangongja has been staying in Changi Alley, mingling with representatives of various families and merchants. Although most of these people have no strength, they can rely on their weak bodies to mix in the ninja world for so many years, their knowledge and ability to collect information can't be underestimated. In addition, Nangongzhi disguised himself as a sick and weak rich son, which made these people lower their vigilance a little. After Nangongzhi's extravagant spending of money and wind, flower, snow and moon's ramblings, a few of the relatively famous people in Changi Alley had already started calling Nangongzhi their brother. These days, although on the surface, Woodleaf Village is as usual. However, there are more people in all important places. Some important messengers got the news that Woodleaf Village has found some ninjas from other villages, so they raised the level of alert. But everyone knows that although Woodleaf Village lost a lot of power in the previous Third Shinobi World War and Ninetails attack, but in the Third Shinobi World War, each village also lost a lot of power. It's time to rest, no one will start a war so easily. Those merchants and noble messengers don't know where to go, but I know. In the past few days, Danzo and the three generations have reached a tacit understanding. In 1 or 2 days they will make a move on the Uchiha clan. Now that the enemy is in the light and I'm in the dark, what should I do to disturb the three generations and the insidious Danzo-sama? Nangongzhi took a sip of the wine in his small glass. Although his tone was asking, he didn't hesitate at all. Obviously, he already had a plan in his heart. Because Itachi Uchiha. Nangongzhi himself has been thinking for a long time. He has been thinking about how Danzo and the three generations will deal with the Uchiha clan. Although the Uchiha clan is not as strong as the Uchiha clan when they first built the village, but over the years the Uchiha clan has been accumulating their strength, and in each generation, there will be several amazing new talents. Moreover, even if Danzo and the three generations really want to face the Uchiha clan at all costs, they also have to consider the thoughts of the other Woodleaf clans. Originally, when the village was built, everyone agreed to build the village together. In other words, every clan is a shareholder of the Woodleaf joint venture. Senju, Uchiha and Hyuga are the biggest shareholders. As for the other small families, they were also shareholders. Now, the Woodleaf clan has developed and become one of the most powerful clans in the shinobi world. The power of the Hokage clan has also expanded rapidly. Originally, it was only the power of Senju clan, but now it has gradually integrated with the power of Sarutobi, Nara, Akimichi, Yamanaka, Shimura, and the Uzumaki clans scattered in the shinobi world. They have also developed the Umbu under Hokage's direct command and Konoha's route. Every small clan began to feel a little uneasy. Am I really one of the owners of the Woodleaf clan now? Don't say that the Woodleaf is my family, we all love her. The strength of the Woodleaf clan is our strength. Such a hypocritical lie. Every clan that has struggled to survive since the Warring States period, there is no one who doesn't get up early without benefits. If the Uchiha clan has really launched a rebellion, then all the small clans naturally have nothing to say, and even send their own forces to help the Hokage clan suppress the Uchiha clan. But Danzo is selfish, he wants to collect the Sharingan of the Uchiha clan. How can he allow others to take such a piece of the cake? At this moment, it is an irreconcilable contradiction. Once the Uchiha clan is destroyed, the small clans will inevitably think about it. Even a powerful clan like the Uchiha clan was destroyed by the Hokage clan. What ability do they have to protect themselves? When the Uchiha clan is destroyed, it inspires more people to rebel against the Hokage clan's rule. It is really a stupid act. Therefore, the Woodleaf clan must put out a person who is willing to take all the blame and not let people suspect. After thinking about it, Nangongzhi didn't know how much information he collected. He found that this candidate is impressively the eldest son of the Uchiha clan's head Uchiha Fugaku, Itachi Uchiha. First of all, Itachi Uchiha is the son of the Uchiha clan's head. Naturally, he has the opportunity to discover the Uchiha clan's bad intentions. Second, Itachi Uchiha can be said to be the most upright and righteous person among all the Uchiha ninjas, which gives Itachi Uchiha a reason to sacrifice his own clan for the Woodleaf clan. Third, Itachi Uchiha has a weakness that can't be ignored, and that is compared to his younger brother Sasuke's doting. When Itachi Uchiha is not on a mission, he spends all his time with his younger brother. Once Danzo and the three generations use Uchiha and Sasuke as a threat, it is very likely that he will become a puppet in the hands of Danzo and the three generations. It is too easy to manipulate. Chapter 143. The night was as dark as ink, leaving only a bright moon hanging in the sky. Itachi Uchiha was squatting on a telephone pole in the Uchiha clan. The moon was floating behind him. For some reason, Itachi's body and the moon were emitting a touch of blood. In other places of the Uchiha clan, Root ninjas wearing Umbu uniforms were shuttling through the streets and alleys of the Uchiha clan. From time to time, screams would break the silence. Itachi didn't say anything, he just told Root about the defensive layout of the Uchiha clan and the distribution of each strong Uchiha clan's home. Is my choice right or wrong? Itachi couldn't help but ask himself. Everyone living in the Uchiha clan was Itachi Uchiha's clansman. Every one of them had the same bloodline as Itachi. But because of Itachi Uchiha's decision, they all rushed to the Yellow Spring at this moment. Most of these people who were killed weren't actually ninjas, they were just Uchiha clansmen who lived under the protection of the Uchiha clan. But at this moment, they are going to lose their lives because of some high-level conspiracy that they didn't know about. At this moment, Itachi is not the poor person who will be weather-beaten in the future, he still has a lot of compassion in his heart. But Itachi knows that only by doing this can he protect his brother. Woodleaf people don't know, but Itachi's heart is very clear. As long as Sasuke can grow strong enough, his descendants will be influenced by the powerful Uchiha bloodline and become a new Uchiha clansman with Sharingan. Moreover, regardless of whether the Uchiha's rebellion will succeed or not, it will inevitably cause more families to be separated by life and death. One family crying is better than 1,000 families crying, one person dying is better than 100 people dying. Itachi may have been brainwashed by the 3 generations and Danzo's words, leading him to make such a decision. This was a decision he would regret for the rest of his life. On the outskirts of the Uchiha clan's land, Danzo was standing on a relatively high ground, watching his subordinates slaughter the Uchiha clan. Every scream represented that Danzo was about to obtain a bloodline that contained the unique bloodline of the Uchiha clan. Danzo's heart was filled with excitement. The legendary Sharingan, except for a part of it, will fall into his hands. Isn't such a thing enough to make Danzo excited? These eyes will be the best help for Danzo to reach the position of Hokage. Oh, your smile is unspeakably disgusting. A strange voice sounded behind Danzo, and a huge pitcher plant slowly floated up from the hard ground. Just do what you have to do, it's time for those old bastards of the Uchiha to appear. Danzo didn't pay attention to Zetsu's strange voice. For Danzo, these ninjas of the Akatsuki are just sharp blades that can be attracted by money and treasures. Just by paying a small part of the harvest of the Sharingan, he can attract a large number of ninjas with decent strength to help him contain the high-end combat power of the Uchiha clan. It would reduce the consumption of his subordinates and preserve his own strength. Why wouldn't he do it? I don't know what the 3 generations Hokage, who is called Ninja Hero by the world and has recently been changing his image to become a kind grandfather, will think when he knows that you actually cooperated with us, the organization that once drove the Nine Tails to attack the Woodleaf? Zetsu didn't care that he was being ignored by Danzo, and he was still talking non-stop. But Danzo glanced at him with extreme contempt and said, "You underestimate Yuan Fei too much. He was the one who defeated me and became Woodleaf's 3 generations Hokage. Do you think you can guess his scheming and charisma? Uchiha is a ticking time bomb for the Woodleaf. Although it is useful, it will harm others and himself. Yuan Fei just didn't want to dirty his hands, so he acquiesced to me borrowing your strength. In the end, Namikaze Watergate is still an unqualified Hokage. Everything is too simple, all enemies and friends can be covered up and betrayed by their own interests. So stupid to go out of the village and look for your Akatsuki and destroy you? If this Namikaze Watergate is a Hokage for 3 to 5 years, I can guarantee that he won't even have the slightest idea of doing such a thing. Namikaze Watergate is just an unqualified ninja." Looking at Danzo, Zetsu was stunned by the shamelessness of such a person. Sure enough, every politician has already buried their moral integrity and bottom line deep in the ground. They don't care about justice or evil, only care about profit or loss. Such a person. Living won't make the world more beautiful, but dying might make the world less noisy. However, a human's life was too short. After the death of a schemer, who knew how many more schemers would emerge with even more sinister intentions? Human, in Zetsu's mind, is such an inferior and meaningless race. They don't have the qualifications to live and enjoy this world. Such a person should be sent back to the furnace as soon as possible. Just when Zetsu was minding his own business, Uchiha's clan land also rose several huge auras. Danzo glanced at Zetsu, then said in a cruel and cold-blooded manner, "It's time for you to show me whether you are worthy of the reward I pay or not." Zetsu looked at Danzo but didn't speak. Just like when he appeared, he slowly sank into the ground. At the same time, several ninjas wearing black robes with red clouds appeared in the dark night sky, revealing their figures. These ninjas were either in pairs or in groups of 3, they were the backup forces of Uchiha. In other words, the genius ninjas of various eras were separated from each other. Each one of them didn't seem to cherish the strength of an elite jonin, each one of them was fearless of death, fighting with the strength of Uchiha clan. Under such a fearless attack, the strength of the Uchiha clan's shinobi was greatly depleted. After that, a pitcher plant would slowly appear behind them. Their lives had been taken away without a sound. And those Akatsuki members who were covered in cuts and bruises also dragged their wounded bodies to dig out the eyes of the Uchiha clan's ninjas they just killed. This is the deal between Danzo and Akatsuki. As long as Akatsuki kills Uchiha clan's ninjas, then the eyes of these ninjas belong to Akatsuki. Chapter 144. With the cooperation of Root and Akatsuki, the Uchiha clan's strength was quickly eliminated. Soon, whether it was powerful ninjas or ordinary clansmen, they all turned into corpses lying on the ground. Perhaps only the blood that slowly flowed out from the wounds on their bodies and the eye sockets that had been dug out could prove that these people had once lived in this world. Itachi Uchiha's figure disappeared from the pole and appeared behind Danzo. "Stop, it's time for me to make my move." Itachi's eyes were cold, which was what Danzo wanted. Without feelings, he could abandon everything as long as he followed the orders of his boss. It was enough. Danzo turned his head and looked at Itachi Uchiha's line of sight. Itachi Uchiha's younger brother, Sasuke, was slowly walking toward his home in the Uchiha clan. Because of the previous massacre, the air was filled with the smell of blood. There was no sound in the surroundings, it was empty and silent, like an old tomb with countless tombstones. Sasuke was just a child, but he could still feel the oppressive and heavy atmosphere. Therefore, he subconsciously quickened his pace, wanting to quickly return to his home, the place where he thought was the safest, where his brother and parents were. Itachi just looked at his brother coldly, then his figure flashed and he already arrived at his home. His father, Uchiha clan's head, Uchiha Fugaku, and his wife, his mother, Uchiha Mikoto, were sitting peacefully in the living room, slowly waiting for his final outcome. When Itachi opened the door, Fugaku's pupils shrank. He guessed countless people who might betray the Uchiha clan and become Woodleaf spy. But he never thought that the person who betrayed the Uchiha was actually his eldest son, Uchiha Itachi, whom he valued the most and gave the most expectations to. "Itachi, I really didn't expect that the person who came to send me and your mother on our last journey would be you." Originally, Uchiha Mikoto was ready to go to hell with her husband and 2 children. For Mikoto, whether it was the human world or hell, as long as she could be with her family, she had nothing to fear. But Itachi's appearance instantly broke Mikoto's mental state. Since Itachi betrayed the Uchiha clan, then doesn't it mean that he can live? What about Sasuke? Would his youngest son be able to live on with him as well? Itachi. Sasuke, Mikoto still couldn't control the impulse in her heart. The desire to let her 2 children live on was like a clump of wild grass, quickly spreading throughout her mind. Although Itachi didn't directly tell her about Sasuke's, he still gave his mother a reassuring look. Mikoto understood her child just like she understood herself. Since Itachi's eyes, she didn't say anything more. "Father, you've made the worst decision possible. Your decision is the root cause of the Uchiha clan's destruction." Itachi turned his head and looked at his father. This was the most harsh words that the always humble and polite Itachi said to his father. "Itachi, there are some things that you can't really understand. I won't defend my actions, nor will I deny my mistakes. Winner takes all, this world has always been like this. Now, since you can use my and your mother's life in exchange for yours and Sasuke's life, then go ahead and make your move." "I'm sorry. All these years, I've only cared about the identity of the Uchiha family. But I haven't been a qualified father and husband. I hope you can make it up to your mother in hell." Uchiha Fugaku's usual stern and harsh attitude changed. The cold and stiff face in Itachi's mind became soft at this moment. "Father," although it was still a bit estranged, Itachi's mood was completely different. It turned out that his father also had such a side to him. At this moment, Sasuke wasn't far from his home. If he wanted to protect his brother, he had to take his parents' lives before he came back. Under the torment, Itachi still raised the sword in his hand and was about to cut his mother. Shwa. The feeling of flesh being cut and warm blood flowing in all directions did not appear. Instead, there was the sound of metal clashing. Just like that, a pitch-black 5-foot-long sword blocked the saber that was about to slash at his mother. "Do you want your parents to live? Do you hate Danzo?" The person who came was Nangongjia, who had removed his disguise. When the Uchiha clan was wiped out by Root and Akatsuki, Nangongja was already at the scene. After many observations, Nangongja found that these Root and Akatsuki ninjas always intentionally or unintentionally skipped the Uchiha clan's house when they were slaughtering the Uchiha clan. So, he sneaked into Uchiha Fugaku's house, wanting to see the further development of things. So, when Itachi was about to kill his mother, he stopped him. Mixed with a part of psychic secret technique, Itachi couldn't help but start to think. His parents, don't he want them to live? The answer was naturally impossible, but his father was the leader of the rebellion against Woodleaf, and the head of the Uchiha clan. Even if Itachi wanted to cover up for him, he couldn't do it at all, right? But Itachi still understood in his heart, as long as there was a slight chance for his parents to escape, Itachi would never miss it. As for whether he hated Danzo, it was like a joke. He was the one who had threatened his own younger brother and forced him to his current situation step by step. Itachi's hatred for Danzo is absolute and can't be ignored. I think I hate him too. Itachi didn't know what was going on with him, but he subconsciously said what was in his heart. I can help you. I can help you save your parents' lives, and I can also help you take revenge on Danzo. In the end, Nangongja still took out his chip. When Itachi heard Nangongja's words, he instantly woke up. In the past few days, Itachi was used by Danzo and 3 generations. Now, Nangongja came to his door, which made Itachi's delicate nerves instantly tense. Chapter 145. Nangongja saw Itachi's attitude clearly. After all, Itachi was just a kid who graduated from the Ninja Academy not long ago. Although he usually looked mature and steady, some things still need time to accumulate slowly. Are you afraid that I will use you? Nangongja directly brought the topic to the light. To be honest, even if I say that I don't want to use you, neither you nor I will believe it. I am indeed using you, but aren't we also using each other? You get benefits, I also get benefits. As long as we understand this, we have a basis for cooperation. Itachi listened to Nangongja's words and he couldn't help but agree. For a long time, Itachi hated using others to gain his own benefits. But recently, everything had started to force Itachi to violate his principles bit by bit. As Nangongja said, although he was used by the 3 generations and Danzo. But didn't he also achieve his own goals? Although it seems that slaughtering the Uchiha clan and saving Uchiha Sasuke is a big loss. But this kind of thing is just like drinking water. Being able to save his brother who might have lost his life in this massacre is already a gain for Itachi. Deal. What are you going to do? Whether it was Uchiha Fugaku or Uchiha Mikoto, they didn't speak at this moment. Instead, they put their fate in the hands of their children, in the hands of Itachi Uchiha. I will give your parents a kind of pill. It can greatly reduce the body's vitality, and make the body fall into a semi-dormant state. In this state, even if they receive a fatal injury, it will last for a long time. You can kill your parents in order to deceive Danzo, but you must find a way to make your parents not lose their eyes, and make sure that they are in good health. In this way, I can secretly take them away and treat them to remove the dormant state. Itachi didn't know if the pills provided by Nangongja were as miraculous as he claimed, but his parents were already doomed. Now that there was such an opportunity to save their lives, both Itachi and Uchiha Fugaku felt that it was worth a try. If that's the case, then let's do it. Sasuke is almost home, and the matter here needs to be solved as soon as possible, otherwise Danzo will be suspicious. Nangongja nodded and took out 2 brown pills the size of a fingertip from his ninja tool bag and placed them in the hands of Uchiha Fugaku and his wife. After taking this pill, you will immediately enter a state of suspended animation. It was as if he had fallen into a deep sleep and could not feel all the sensations in his body. However, this state cannot be maintained for too long, or it will lead to your immediate death. So, Nangongja looked at Itachi and then said, everything needs to be done quickly. Fugaku and his wife as well as Itachi nodded, and then Fugaku and his wife each took a pill, and instantly lost all their senses and fell to the ground. All their physical characteristics became extremely weak, and it was impossible to detect them. Let's finish them off, Nangongja said to Itachi Uchiha, and Itachi also raised the Zanpakuto in his hand and slashed his parents without hesitation. The huge wound slowly oozed blood, and the strange thing was that it was such a big wound but there was very little blood flowing out. Sui Ran looked very decisive, and there was no emotional fluctuation at all. However, the original pair of dark eyes had turned red at this moment. It was the Uchiha clan's Kekkei Genkai, Sharingan. The tomo in the eyes was spinning quickly, and the three Tomo and the pupil were about to connect into a line. Itachi's heart was full of memories of himself and his parents. It was obviously such an ordinary memory, but at this moment, it became so clear, so full of happiness. But now there was nothing. Itachi's heart was filled with extraordinary hatred. The hatred for his father was because he wanted to fight for power and profit, and pushed his family into the abyss of destruction. The hatred for Danzo was because he coveted the Uchiha clan's Kekkei Genkai, Sharingan, and forced him to push his family step by step to this point. But the hatred for himself? He could have fought for his family and fought with the root ninjas to defend his family, but he couldn't bear to see more people die, so he chose to betray his family. Hatred. He hated the world for being unfair, and he hated himself for being weak. If he could be stronger, he would be able to face all threats. Then how could he make such a choice? His parents lying on the ground, and the blood slowly flowing out of their wounds was like a sharp knife stabbing his head. Although he took the pill given by Nangongja, Itachi didn't know whether his parents could wake up smoothly, but under the influence of his slightly extreme mood, his heart was filled with all kinds of pessimistic thoughts. 2 tears of blood slowly flowed from Itachi's eyes, and the 3 Tomo in the Sharingan had now turned into a huge triangular windmill. This is the evolved form of the Uchiha clan's Sharingan, Mangekyo Sharingan. Then I'll leave the rest to you. Nangongja walked to Itachi's side and patted his shoulder with his hand. At this moment, Itachi's temperament has changed greatly. The original sadness and anger at this moment quietly disappeared. Only extreme indifference and coldness were left, as if Itachi had frozen his heart and soul. Don't worry, since I made a deal with you, I will naturally do it. You just need to be ready to accept my parents. Itachi's tone was a bit cold, but he still didn't get confused by all kinds of emotions, and his words were still somewhat organized. Oniai-san. Father-sama. Mom. Little Sasuke's shout came from outside the door, and glanced at Nangongja. Nangongja immediately hid his figure. Brother. Brother? Sasuke opened his door, and although he still saw his brother and parents, it wasn't what he wanted to see. At this moment, Itachi was holding a bleeding Zanpakuto, and the scarlet blood made the Zanpakuto's blade even colder. His father and mother both had a hideous wound on their chests. All of this was telling a cruel story to Sasuke. Chapter 146. Brother Itachi. Sasuke wanted to say more to ask his brother, but all the words in his heart couldn't jump out of his mouth at this moment. He could only call his brother's name, hoping that his brother could give him an answer different from what he guessed. Sasuke. Let me test your tolerance, okay? Let me see if you are a qualified successor of the Uchiha clan. Itachi looked at Sasuke, and the words coming out of his mouth were exceptionally stiff and unapproachable. Brother, what are you talking about? What tolerance? What qualified successor? I don't understand. Did someone break into our house? Did you pick up this bloody sword in your hand to fight against the intruder? Itachi's words were completely incomprehensible to the young Sasuke. Little Sasuke could only use his limited imagination to fabricate a reasonable explanation for the person standing in front of him, who was suspected of killing his parents. Sasuke, don't you understand? I killed father and mother with my own hands for my own sake. All of this is to test my tolerance, to awaken the most powerful force belonging to the Uchiha clan. Itachi looked at Sasuke, and his dark eyes instantly turned into blood-red Sharingan. The most powerful force? Sasuke looked at the Sharingan in Itachi's eyes, which symbolized the highest glory of his clan, and couldn't help but repeat the words his brother just mentioned. Itachi's Sharingan, which originally had 3 Tomo, began to rotate rapidly. Slowly, the Tomo and the pupil in the middle of the eye connected together, turning into a strange triangular pinwheel-shaped icon that slowly rotated in Itachi's eye sockets. Yes, this is the evolved form of our Uchiha clan's Sharingan, Mangekyo Sharingan. Only the members of the Uchiha clan who truly have the power of transcendent being can have it. The path I chose was to kill my parents and all the clansmen living outside. Brother, what are you doing? Parents, all the clansmen. How could it be? How could it be brother who killed them? Sasuke couldn't help but think of the faint fishy smell in the air when he entered the Uchiha land, and the overly quiet environment. If everything Itachi said was true, then his brother had killed thousands of innocent people for such an illusory goal of tolerance? Did that include his parents? I don't believe it. I will never believe that my brother would do such a thing. Sasuke shook his head vigorously. Maybe this was the only way to make himself more convinced of his own ideas. Itachi also saw that it was impossible to persuade his brother with words alone, so he looked directly at his brother with a pair of Mangekyo Sharingan. Is that so? Then I'll let you see with your own eyes. Tsukuyomi. Sasuke fell into a black space at this moment, and the only ray of light was a bloody moon suspended in the sky. There were even 3 Tomo Sharingan marks on the moon. Itachi stood in front of Sasuke with his back facing him. Brother? Sasuke wanted to open his mouth and call his brother's name, but he couldn't make a sound. When he found that he couldn't speak at all, Sasuke quickly ran to Itachi's side and wanted to grab his brother with his hand. But as soon as he reached out, his hand passed through Itachi Uchiha's body. His brother in front of him was just a shadow. Sasuke watched helplessly as his brother killed the Uchiha clansmen that he had been living with day and night. Some of these people lived next door to him. Some of them were his childhood playmates. Most of them were Uchiha clansmen whose faces he couldn't remember. I don't believe it, I don't believe it. I don't believe that my brother would do such a thing. That old-fashioned elder brother who had always been so gentle to him, who had always respectfully called his parents Lord Father and Lord Mother, would actually kill his parents and clansmen in exchange for power in order to test his tolerance. Do you see? This is what I did to make myself a qualified Uchiha clansman. Itachi appeared in the dark night sky like a god, with a blood-red full moon suspended behind him. And under Itachi's body, one Itachi figure after another appeared. Although their movements were different, their expressions were also different. But all of them were doing the same thing, killing. Killing without stopping. They were killing people as if they were uprooting weeds in a field. Blood splattered all over the sky, and screams echoed all around. These things were mercilessly accusing Itachi Uchiha's actions. Itachi's family, Uchiha's everything, Itachi's parents were all killed by him. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Sasuke covered his ears and closed his eyes. He wanted to make himself unable to hear those screams and see the blood splattering all over the sky. The cries were like the mournful wails of cuckoos, each of them crying blood. Sasuke had already begun to believe it, even though he tried his best to ignore everything that Itachi wanted to show him. But even though he covered his ears, the sorrowful cries still echoed in his mind. Even though he closed his eyes tightly, the smell of blood still rushed into his nose. Can't you hold on any longer? You still have to witness such a scene over and over again. Even if your mind is overwhelmed, even if you don't want to see these things at all. You still can't faint. You still have to witness these things again. Because, this is the Mangekyo Sharingan. This is the power of Tsukuyomi. My stupid brother. Itachi's voice still echoed, and the coldness contained in it became heavier and heavier. Only by doing this could his weak brother grow up to be able to face anyone's threat, to face any form of fear. To revive the Uchiha clan once again. Even if he couldn't revive the Uchiha clan, at least he could survive. In the end, Sasuke fainted. The repeated mental stimulation caused Sasuke to fall to the ground the moment he left Tsukuyomi. As for Sasuke's eyes, they had unknowingly turned into a one-tomo Sharingan floating in them. A bloody tear flowed down Itachi's face. Looking at his brother, Itachi's eyes were filled with sadness and relief. For his brother, he was sad that he had to live alone from now on. For his brother, he was gratified that he could live from now on. Chapter 147. Holding his brother, Itachi walked out of his house step by step. Itachi couldn't help but look back at the place where he grew up. This is the place where he spent most of his time. But it's also the place where he will never be able to return to in his life. Itachi guessed in his heart that maybe he will never set foot in this area in his life. After all, whether it's the things that he cherished or those that accompanied him growing up, they were all destroyed by him. His steps were still firm. Everything he did in the future would be so that his younger brother could take charge and survive on his own. Even if the premise is that his brother will hate him and only want to get rid of him, it's fine. Everything is done, Itachi said to Danzo, who was standing opposite him. Very good, from now on, you will be the S-class ninja who betrayed Woodleaf after destroying the Uchiha clan, Itachi Uchiha. Woodleaf will mobilize all forces to capture you. Danzo looked at Itachi and coldly made a judgment for him. At the same time, several root ninjas walked to the opposite side of Itachi and reached out to take Sasuke, who was in Itachi's arms. Remember your promise to me, let Sasuke live a healthy and safe life. Itachi didn't immediately hand over his brother in his hands, but looked at Danzo to confirm the deal between them. That's for sure. I'll definitely do what I've promised you. Danzo didn't even look at Itachi and just said, "You can go and confirm the death of my parents, but I want to take their bodies away. You can't violate them." Itachi said, but Danzo wasn't happy. "Is this part of our deal? Those are my parents. I will not allow them to have their eyes gouged out like those Uchiha clan members who were slaughtered by you. Leave their bodies intact. I will take them away and bury them properly. This is my last request." Danzo waved his hand and several root ninjas walked out. "Go and confirm the death of Uchiha clan's clan head Uchiha Fugaku and his wife Uchiha Mikoto." Several root ninjas quickly disappeared, but a moment later, one of them walked to Danzo's side and whispered a few words to Danzo. The remaining root ninjas also came out with the bodies of Uchiha Fugaku and Uchiha Mikoto, but there was an obvious wound on their necks. Their throats were once again cut by the root ninjas to confirm their death. "Remember, this is the only and last time you will act on your own initiative." Danzo looked at Itachi to warn him. Itachi didn't say anything. He just took his parents' bodies and brought them away, one in each hand. Looking at his parents' grave, it was already far away from the wood leaf. Whether it was Uchiha Fugaku or Uchiha Mikoto, there was no tombstone on their graves. It was just two lonely little mounds under such a big tree. Perhaps Itachi chose this place because he didn't want his parents to suffer the cruelty of the wind and rain even after they died. Looking at his parents' grave, Itachi was silent for a long time before leaving. Not long after Itachi left, several root ninjas came out to check the grave again. After confirming that it was indeed Uchiha Fugaku and his wife, they left this place. These root ninjas are really careful. They actually came to check again. Should I say that they are really worthy of being root ninjas? Nangongja also came out from the shadows and confirmed that there were no hidden sentries around. Nangongja began to dig out the bodies of Uchiha Fugaku and Uchiha Mikoto. Carefully returning the grave to its original state, Nangongja took the bodies of Uchiha Fugaku and his wife to the Lion Clan's dimension. Who? Itachi felt an aura following him from behind. After confirming that he was far away from his parents' grave, Itachi called out to the figure that was following him. "I hope Nangongja can save my parents?" Without giving Itachi more time to think, a huge pitcher plant appeared behind him. Looking at the black cover with red clouds on Zetsu's body, Itachi's eyes were a bit dazed. "It seems that you know about us?" Zetsu looked at Itachi's reaction and realized that Itachi actually knew about the organization he belonged to. When Nine Tails attacked the village, the Uchiha clan also had a detailed record. After all, whether it's the mysterious person who can arm wrestle with Yondaime Hokage or the 3-Tomo Sharingan mark in Nine Tails' eye socket for the Uchiha clan, it's information that must be collected. Itachi didn't intend to lie to Zetsu. After all, a ninja of this level can distinguish whether a person is telling the truth or not. I didn't expect our organization to have reached such a prestigious level." Zetsu's words were strange. Obviously he was praising his organization, but there was a different kind of joking tone in his voice. "Then, everything will be easy. Our organization is an organization that recruits all S-class ninjas. We take in all the ninjas who left the village and give them shelter. At the same time, they will also serve our organization when the organization needs them. A ninja who betrayed the wood leaf and wiped out his own family must need our organization's protection, right? Serve your organization and you will provide me shelter?" Itachi repeated the conditions proposed by Zetsu, and listening to Itachi's retelling, Zetsu nodded and gave an affirmation. "How can you prove that you can shelter me? You know, I betrayed the wood leaf. The crimes I have committed are enough for Konoha to issue the highest level of arrest warrant to the shinobi world. How to protect you? Can I?" Zetsu didn't have time to speak. Another voice sounded. Although Itachi noticed that someone was following him early, it was just a subconscious reaction. When Zetsu came out, Itachi also carefully checked his surroundings again, but he didn't expect that there was someone hiding here. The person who came out had orange hair, and his face was decorated with strange black ornaments. Naturally, the person who came out was also wearing the Akatsuki's signature black cover with red clouds. The most peculiar thing was his eyes. There were circles of ripples distributed in his white eyes. Reincarnation. Eyes? Itachi couldn't help but say such a sentence. Chapter 148. Looking at pain in front of him, even Itachi couldn't help but be in a trance at the moment. That's the eye of the legendary sage of the Six Paths, known as the ancestor of the shinobi world. In the mythical stories he has read since he was a child, this person's name will never be missing. Originally, Itachi thought that such a person was just a fictional character in the past, but now the eyes representing this mythical character appeared in front of him. Don't ask Itachi if he didn't suspect that this eye was fake, because the moment pain came out, the majestic momentum and the suppression from the bloodline appeared in Itachi's heart, and it was difficult to dispel. How about it? As the successor of Sage of the Six Paths, do I have enough qualifications to shelter you? Pain's eyes narrowed, like a god looking down at his believers who were prostrating at his feet. It was obviously a question, but it was full of a kind of undeniable majesty. Itachi knew that he had lost the right to veto. As long as he still wants to live, as long as he still wants to watch his brother grow step by step, then he has to crawl at the feet of such a godlike character. But Itachi is not willing. Itachi's pride does not allow him to crawl at the feet of others. Ha! Itachi's mouth made a low roar and a powerful chakra burst out of his body. In an instant he broke through Pain's momentum lock. I don't want to give in to anyone anymore. Amaterasu. The triangular pinwheel in Itachi's eyes rotated quickly, and even his eyes seemed to be overwhelmed and began to shed a line of blood tears. Seeing that Itachi seemed to want to resist, Zetsu couldn't stand it anymore. It was him who suggested to pull Itachi into his organization, but now Itachi started to resist without giving him face. Zetsu took a step forward and seemed to be about to attack. But just as Zetsu took the first step, Pain stretched out a hand and stopped him. It doesn't matter. Since he wants to understand my strength well, then I will give him this opportunity. Only in this way can he really be convinced. Let's work hard for our goals. Even in the face of the attack of Manjikyu Sharingan, the evolved form of Sharingan, Pain still looked calm. It's like a house cat naughtily wants to catch its owner, and the owner is just waiting for a good time to kick it hard to let it know the majesty of the owner. Ignored. Even if he has the Manjikyu Sharingan, this godlike man standing in front of him still looks down on him like this. Itachi didn't lose control of his emotions, but being despised by others he will be very angry, let alone Itachi who has been regarded as a genius since he was a child. A black flame floated out along Itachi's line of sight, and attacked Pain at an extremely fast speed. God? God? Pain stretched out a hand, but there wasn't the slightest chakra fluctuation. Of pain. Then heaven and earth seemed to listen to Pain's command. A strong repulsive force appeared out of nowhere. The Amaterasu, which was shapeless to begin with, had taken on the shape of a black flame because it had swallowed everything around it, was repelled by the repulsive force. It landed on a nearby tree and swallowed the tree mercilessly. Are you convinced? Pain asked indifferently, but Itachi didn't say a word, just took out a few kunai. With his proficient kunai throwing technique, he threw them at Pain. It seems that you still don't understand my power, Shinra Tensei. The power just now was activated again, and several kunai were bounced away in an instant. Itachi was surprised such a heaven-defying skill was actually released so easily. He thought that the reason why Pain was able to bounce his Amaterasu was because he had already made the hand seals of this powerful ninjutsu in advance, but now the situation is simply instant ninjutsu. 10,000. Elephant. God. Guide. Pain stretched out his palm again and aimed at Itachi. Unlike the strong repulsive force just now, this time Pain made a strong gravitational force. Even if Itachi tried his best to break free from the attraction of gravity, standing on the ground was still a drop in the bucket. After a short struggle, Itachi was attracted to it. Pain's palm grabbed Itachi's neck fiercely, and Itachi stared directly at Pain's eyes. Are you wondering why your genjutsu didn't work? Itachi was slightly surprised because what Pain said at the moment was also what he wanted to ask the most. As a ninja, Itachi's strongest is never ninjutsu or taijutsu, but under the blessing of Sharingan, almost no one can resist genjutsu. Just now, Itachi looked directly at Pain's eyes for 2 seconds. Even people with high genjutsu resistance will fall into Itachi's genjutsu at this moment. He saw himself turning into a cluster of crows and flying around. But Pain didn't have any abnormality at all, he was not affected by genjutsu at all. Itachi's heart became fierce, and the triangular pinwheels in his eyes began to spin quickly. A purple flame rose from Itachi's body, and in a moment, it had turned into a huge skeleton dyed with purple chakra flames. The skeleton held a sword in one hand and a shield in the other, and Itachi's height was instantly raised. From a high place, he looked down at Pain, who was standing at the foot of the giant he summoned. Susanoo, The secret of Manjikyu Sharingan that appears after a pair of Manjikyu Sharingan is used to the extreme? Looking at the huge skeleton standing in front of him, Pain muttered softly. Although the voice was very small, it still reached Itachi's ears. This move was imprinted in his mind after he awakened Manjikyu Sharingan. Although he was not proficient, Itachi still used it. Such a thing, Pain, who is not a member of the Uchiha clan, is actually more clear than the Uchiha clan. When he first saw Pain before, there was a faint suppression from the bloodline in his heart. Itachi had some speculations in his heart. There is definitely an unknown relationship between Sharingan and Rinnegan. But at this moment, Itachi didn't have time to think about these things at all. Instead, he manipulated the huge skeleton outside his body, Susanoo, to raise the giant sword in his hand. It slashed fiercely towards Pain. Chapter 149. The huge sword, under the control of Susanoo, slashed towards Pain, who was standing at his feet. Itachi could feel that he had hit the target, and the huge force even stirred up the dust in the sky. But Zetsu, who was watching the battle from the side, didn't react at all. He seemed to be very confident in the leader of his organization. Under such an attack as the leader of his organization, he would never fail. And the facts seemed to be on Zetsu's side. After the smoke and dust settled, everything was displayed in front of everyone. Pain actually relied on his own pair of palms to directly take the full force of Susanoo's attack. And even the ground under his feet was not affected in the slightest. The 1 meter square ground under his feet stood alone on the ground like a pillar, lifting Pain high like a god. Other than that, the height of the ground dropped by at least a meter. In fact, it was not appropriate to say that Pain took the attack of Susanoo with his own hands, because the giant sword in Susanoo's hand was about 5 or 6 centimeters away from Pain's palm. The huge repulsive force and the power of the giant sword of Susanoo offset each other, confronting each other like this. Impossible. This was the first sentence after the real battle between Itachi and Pain began, and the tone of their words was full of disbelief. No. All of this is real. Because I have the eyes of God. I was sent to the world by God to reshape everything and bring peace to the world. When Pain said this sentence, his mood was no longer as indifferent as before. There was a sense of madness in his eyes, which was a kind of fanatical belief in himself. If such a person was pulled to other places, he would definitely be scolded as mentally ill, and then be sent to the local mental hospital for treatment. But Itachi couldn't refute this person's words at all. Whether it was this person's eyes or this person's power, it was just as Pain said. He was God. A God who was really different from ordinary human beings. Looking at Itachi's eyes, Pain knew that the proud man in front of him had actually been conquered by him. The corner of his mouth pulled out a stiff smile, which made Zetsu, who was standing next to him, stunned. This Pain actually smiled? Even though it was still so stiff, it was a genuine smile on his face. Was incredible. It's time to end this. Pain looked at the giant sword in front of him and seemed to be a little impatient. Thus, he gently raised his hand as if he was holding up a ball of cotton, and raised the huge sword high into the air. Shinra Tensei. The huge repulsive force struck again, overturning Susanoo and its sword to the ground. Just now, Pain still didn't use his strongest power? This was Itachi's last thought before he fainted. After that, he fell into a deep coma. Zu ran to Pain's side and hugged Itachi in his arms. Pain, who was next to him, also disappeared in a few flashes. Only Zu, who was standing in the same place, looked at Itachi in her arms. After that, she brought Itachi into the ground and disappeared. Only the huge pit on the ground and the giant tree that was still burning with black fire proved that there was an unusually fierce battle here just now, but the wood-leaf barrier-class ninjas had to go so far to seal such an unknown black fire. Not far from the battlefield, 2 figures were hiding in a giant tree made of paper. Nagato stood in a strange container, his whole body was skinny, and there were several terrible black iron rods on his back. Konan, who had purple hair with a white paper flower on it, looked at Nagato in front of her and couldn't help but ask. Although this Itachi does have some potential, recruiting him will also improve the strength of our organization. But, Nagato, why are you so happy? Yes, at this moment, Nagato's face was actually a little bit smiling. Unlike the stiff smile on Pain's face, Nagato had a very natural smile at this moment. If you ignore his dry hair and thin face, presumably this smile will be a little warmer, right? Konan. This Uchiha clansman unconsciously reminds me of Yahiko. The same strong, the same sacrificial spirit. In fact, it's not so important whether I can recruit him into our organization or not. It's just that his image in my heart gradually overlaps with Yahiko's, as long as he's in our organization. I will always think of Yahiko, the original intention of our Akatsuki, and my current goal. When Konan heard Yahiko's name, there was a deep sadness in her eyes. Whether it was Yahiko's body that was made into Pain Tendo's body, or Itachi who was now recruited, Nagato gave her a warning. She didn't forget her original intention, and with Yahiko's dream she wanted to turn this world into the dream of the three of them when they were children, a world without worries, without disputes, without war. However, Konan still faintly asked herself in her heart. Even if Nagato has the Rinnegan, even if he has the help of the Uchiha Madara, can they really create such an illusory and unreal world? Konan didn't have the answer in her heart, but she still firmly looked at Nagato next to her. In any case, she has lost Yahiko and she absolutely can't lose Nagato. Since Nagato has decided to carry out such a plan, then all she can do is try her best to help him. Even if she can't, she must try her best to protect him and keep him away from danger. Konan has never believed in this whimsical plan, nor did she believe in the masked man who has been hiding himself. Konan just wanted to protect Nagato, that's all. She had no other demands. When Itachi opened his eyes again, he found himself in a crypt. The surroundings were a little dark, with only a few oil lamps hanging on the walls, providing a little bit of light to the crypt. A figure stood in front of him, holding a robe, a ring, and a hat decorated with several small bells that covered his entire face. A head of orange hair and eyes with circles of ripples was enough to prove who the person standing in front of him was. It was the leader of the Akatsuki, Pain, who he couldn't do anything to. Chapter 150. There was no need for the author to retell what happened later. Facing Pain, who had no power to resist, Itachi could only silently accept the Akatsuki uniform. On the other side, in the Lion Clan's different dimension, Nangongja stood in the hut originally built by Mishiro, looking at the Uchiha Fugaku couple lying quietly on the bed. His face was a little worried. Because in the beginning, although Itachi's attack was heavy, there was still room to save them. When Nangongja took out the bodies of the Uchiha couple from the simple grave built by Itachi, he also found the wound that was later added by the Root Ninja. This wound was a bit tricky. Nangongja didn't dare to guarantee that his sister could save these two people. Finally, Nangongro stopped treating the Uchiha couple. "How is it?" Nangongja immediately asked anxiously. "The situation is not optimistic." Nangongro's words made Nangongja's heart sink. This is not a good omen. But fortunately they took the turtle-breathing pill in advance, and Big Brother, you brought them here. I have now stitched up their wounds, but they can't leave the Lion Clan's different dimension for a long time. After all, the natural energy in the air of the ninja world is too thin compared to the Lion Clan's different dimension, and all kinds of bacteria may cause secondary damage to their bodies. So they need to recuperate for a while. Nangongja knew that his goal has actually been achieved. As long as the lives of the Uchiha couple are saved, he can stand on the same side as Itachi Uchiha. All kinds of plans in the future will be possible to be carried out. How long will it take for them to wake up? Nangongja asked his sister. This is not certain because strictly speaking they are still in a critical period. If it was an ordinary person they would have already become vegetative, but considering the physical advantage of the ninja and the innate spiritual power of the Uchiha clan, they should wake up in 3 to 5 days. Nangongro made a comprehensive analysis of the physical condition of the Uchiha couple and made a judgment. Well, let's wait for them to wake up and talk about other things. In fact, time passed so quickly, but in just 5 days the Uchiha couple has already woken up. At this moment the two can't eat normal food, so they can only eat a little liquid food. But they can still talk to each other. What's the situation of the Uchiha family now? After Uchiha Fugaku woke up, he began to ask Nangongja the question he was most concerned. Strictly speaking, the Uchiha clan doesn't exist anymore. In the knowledge of the ninja world, now the Uchiha clan is only left with Itachi Uchiha and Uchiha Sasuke. Now, counting you and Uchiha Yuri Koyuri who I brought here, the Uchiha clan should be only 5 people left. As for those who were not in the Uchiha base during the night of the extermination, I believe that Danzo will not let them go. Nangongja didn't sympathize with Uchiha Fugaku's mood so gently, but he said so cruelly to Fugaku. In fact, Fugaku didn't have much expectation that Uchiha could survive, but when Nangongja directly told him the reality, it was inevitable that his heart sank, and his mood was a little depressed. Well. It's good that Sasuke and Itachi can survive. Mikoto seemed to see that her husband was actually very uncomfortable, so she stretched out her hand and grabbed her husband's hand. Look at it, at least our children are still alive. And there is a little girl who was lucky enough to escape such a dangerous situation, right? Fugaku suddenly said to Nangongja, can you also call the little girl named Yuri Koyuri? Although Yuri Koyuri originally belonged to the conservative faction in the Uchiha clan, these insignificant factions have long been meaningless. At this time, Uchiha Fugaku called Yuri Koyuri, nothing more than to tell Yuri Koyuri some secrets about the Uchiha clan. Whether it was Nangongjo or Nangongro, they have already seen through this. So after the two called Yuri Koyuri, they didn't go in but chatted outside. Onie-san, this time you and Danzo fell out. In fact, it can be regarded as a disguised form of falling out with Woodleaf. Even if you really go back to Woodleaf, presumably the estrangement between you two will be extremely deep. Onie-san, what are you going to do? In fact, Nangongro has been thinking about this problem since her brother brought Uchiha Fugaku and his wife to the Lion Clan's different space, but because of Uchiha Fugaku and his wife's injuries, she didn't have time to ask her brother these questions. Now, she finally took advantage of the fact that Uchiha Fugaku was going to talk to Yuri Koyuri, so she asked the question that had been in her heart for a long time. In fact, it's not as serious as you think. It's true that this time I fell out with Woodleaf, but it doesn't mean that I fell out with 3 generations Hokage and a group of ninjas I met in Woodleaf. Woodleaf seems very open, but in fact they are still vigilant in the face of people like me who have the strength to join Woodleaf. Since I began to stand out on the battlefield, I don't know how many people began to secretly send a lot of people to watch us. So, from the beginning, our relationship with Woodleaf was not as close as you think. If I have to use words to describe it, I'm more like a mercenary recruited by Woodleaf. Working for Woodleaf, Woodleaf provides me with a certain amount of protection. Danzo and 3 generations have always been at odds, this time because of various interests. They cooperated to deal with the Uchiha clan. This time, although I completely stood on the opposite side of Danzo, but in the battle between the two sides, didn't I firmly push myself to the side of 3 generations? Nangongja said a lot, but in the end what he meant was that he only fell out with Danzo on the surface, but he was still in an ambiguous state with 3 generations. So Woodleaf will not be in a hostile state with him at all. Then, brother, do you still want to go back to Woodleaf? As soon as the words came out, Nangongro felt that she asked a stupid question. Because although Nangongja and Woodleaf did not completely go against each other, but in this situation if he still went back, wouldn't he be in a hurry to be looked down upon? Nangongja did not answer his sister's question, but looked down at the god's retribution sword in his hand. The corner of his mouth slightly drooped, as if he had made a decision. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.